Hi, good morning. Sorry if I was muted. 10:02, 10:03, man, 3 minutes late. Sorry about that. On Monday, December 8th, took me a second to get on for a second. I think it's good now, right? Can somebody confirm that it's good? We got one kid home with the flu. All right, we're good. Got to cool down my coffee. We got the chat working. Okay, we can get started. All right, so Jameson Taillon is going to come on around 11, chat with him for a little bit. In the meantime, we'll break down a few other things. Yesterday, obviously, we had the Contemporary Hall of Fame ballot. That was a interesting little 8 hours in which I realized that the votes are going to come out on the same day. I had no idea that that was happening so fast. Otherwise, I would have done a whole preview of my thoughts on that on Friday. Instead of doing more prospects, we could have always saved the prospects for later. But yeah, 6 guys on the ballot. 1 guy gets in. You can only vote for 3 at a time. You needed 75% of the votes. Jeff Kent is the one that gets in. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll see where we're at. And we'll just kind of make up the show as we go. So let's head over to the main screen and let's get it started here. There was this trade over the weekend. I guess it probably happened late Friday. That we'll break down as well in a second. But yeah, Jeff Kent gets in. So we're going to break all that down and we're going to have all the thoughts on the contemporary era ballot. Maybe we'll do that right off the rip. Yeah, and then we'll worry about that trade later. A trade's not nearly as important. So 6 people get on the ballot for this. Jeff Kent's the only one who gets the votes. I'm a little surprised. I thought this was all set up and pretty ripe for Donnie Baseball or for Dale Murphy to get in. I kind of knew that Bonds and Clemens probably weren't going to get in. So we'll go ahead and take a look at it. There was a 16 member panel, and you needed 12 to get elected. The committee itself, I have a list of those people here somewhere, which is an interesting list. Here, let me do a little more Googling. So it was Barry, Roger, Carlos Delgado, who actually has a sneaky good case. I feel like he got overshadowed a little bit by a lot of the other first basemen in his era. Jeff Kent finally getting in. We'll go through his profile in a minute and why the numbers really helped him get in more than the other stuff. Then you got Donnie Baseball, who we all know about, Dale Murphy, Gary Sheffield, and Fernando Valenzuela. Those were the people on the list. I can make a case for all 6 of them, really. But in the end, only Jeff Kent gets in. He was really the only one even close to getting in. A couple other people got more than 5 votes, but the steroid guys obviously got less. And I'm a little confused about the voting body. I saw a thing with the committee. I got to find the committee. Because it's an interesting group. And really, who's on these committees ends up basically, like it's almost like it's engineered from the beginning to, deny certain people and bring other people in. All right, where it is? Where is it? Here we go. Here it is. Hall of Fame reveals committee. So this was the committee that voted. It was Hall of Fame players: Fergie Jenkins, Jim Cott, Juan Marichal, Tony Perez, Ozzie Smith, Alan Trammell, and Robin Yount. So, I mean, Alan Trammell and Robin Yount played in the 80s and maybe the early 90s, and Ozzie as well. A lot of these guys are a lot older: Jim Cott, Fergie Jenkins, Juan Marichal, Tony Perez. So there's a lot of gatekeeping of their own era. So you just know that a lot of the like it's going to be a tough bar to clear, and I do feel like the what's needed to get in, what's needed for election, has definitely shifted over time. But it's curious because there's no voter transparency in this committee. Now, when we do the regular ballot now, those ballots are all open. Some people choose to go anonymous, like the guy who just voted for David Wright and left everybody else off. But these are not. Nobody knows who voted for who. And I think that makes it a little tough to figure out kind of where these other guys are going to pick up votes or how this is going to go in the forward. It's kind of like arbitration process. They don't really tell you why. There's no why. So, okay, also owners, Mark Antanasio and Artie Moreno, who are two guys I have zero idea what their ideology is when it comes to baseball and Hall of Fame. Numbers, steroids, any of that. No idea. No idea. So that's two people we have that are total wild cards, as well as the front office guys: Kim Ning, Doug Melvin, Tony Regans, and Terry Ryan, who was formerly with the Twins back in the day. If you don't know who that is, I don't know. It's another group that's in here. They're a little more modern. These are all modern time general managers, all in the last 10, 15 years, but no idea what they would vote for. And then two writers, Tyler Kepner and Jason Stark, who considered, also Steve Hurt, who is considered, these are like the historians of the game. Jason Stark is like Mr. Stats guy, Mr. Find Out, all the quirky things that happened, kind of Sarah Lang's before Sarah Lang's, if you will, in a way. And Tyler Kepner, he's written for a lot of big publications. But again, because there's no transparency, we have no idea really how these people voted individually or what their criteria is, or nothing. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and tell you what I would have voted for. All right. And you don't have to agree with me. That's what this is all about. This is one of the fun things about the Baseball Hall of Fame, as opposed to like some of the other Hall of Fames. Like in NBA, like if you have like just a mildly interesting career, you get in. If you're above, it feels like you're just getting in. Like all sorts of people are in the NBA Hall of Fame. It's a big hall as opposed to the small hall. Obviously, they have a lot less history than us in baseball, but baseball, we have a long history, and it's mostly about the combination of peak plus longevity is what usually gets you in. Now, a lot of times the longevity part is sort of, it's sort of melting away as the decades go on. There's not as many guys with 20-year careers, so a lot of the accumulation stats probably need to be taken with a grain of salt moving forward, as well as the fact that the game's played differently. Things like wins and innings and complete games for starting pitchers, those aren't really as much of the they're just not as attainable. They're not as easily attainable anymore. If you're not pitching deeper into the games, you're not going to be on the hook as much. But I don't know. It's an interesting thing how we've kind of evolved this process. And then you get to the steroid stuff. So, all right. So we get to the steroid stuff. And that's where my first roadblock is when considering how to vote for this. Like, I'm not talking about the other stuff because you get to vote for 10 people. But in this case, you would only get to vote for 3. And it used to be all about hitting the benchmarks: 3,000 hits, 500 homers, 300 wins. Those were the ways you would get in. Now it's more so, it's like, do you have just enough longevity combined with a huge peak? All right, so just looking at these 6 players that are on the list, the first 2 we have to talk about right away are Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens. So let me just go to their ridiculously absurd Baseball Reference pages just to get an idea of the overall contributions of these 2 men to the sport. I understand that they're extremely controversial players, but if you just look first at that first thing I was talking about, greatness plus longevity, these 2 guys are on a different freaking level. Roger Clemens, 139.2 WAR. I mean, for Christ's sakes, he played from 21 to 44, right? And really, 2005 is a big year that I care about because what happened in 2005? 2005 is when the testing began. That is when it wasn't more than just a slap on the wrist. It wasn't more than just, hey, this is something that we look down upon. This is when it became real. You really can't take this stuff. You'll get suspended. There's a ban on steroids. So to me, everything that happened before that is a little bit in a different area. I understand that there's people that were played in the era from the 80s and the 90s and 2000s that didn't juice, and they had to go against these guys, and I feel for those guys. But I also know that there was a ton of players that were lousy players that also juiced, that were facing these guys, well, both Clemens and Bonds. So it's a little hard for me to completely ignore the fact that they were just kind of along with the crowd, honestly, prior to this. Now, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that, but to me, I penalize the guys more who came after this. The Ryan Brauns, the Manny Ramirez's, the Alex Rodriguez getting popped. To me, those are different things. Those are, you know the rules. You cheated the game. Everybody else made a commitment to stay clean, and you didn't. And you're cheating everybody else. In this world that existed before 05, you can say that, and you're not. It's an argument. I'll listen to it. But in my mind, we don't know about the competition. We don't know about who they were playing. And before you say, that we knew that this was illegal and stuff like that, you're in a very dog-eat-dog world. And when everybody around you is getting this advantage, I don't blame anybody for trying to keep up. Baseball is more than a career. It's a dream that happens when you're a young kid and you want to be as great as you can at it. And it's tough to look around and see the changes in the other guys and not jump on board. So I'm not saying that it's right, but I'm saying I find it hard to hold them accountable when the league wasn't holding them accountable. All these stats are still in the permanent record. Bud Selig's in the Hall of Fame. A lot of people turned a blind eye to it, especially in 1998, when clearly Sosa, McGuire, and Jr., who I don't believe did any steroids, were kind of saving the sport in 98. And then I'm going to make another point here that people might disagree with me on, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. There's at least 3 guys that I can think of off the top of my head that are already in the Hall of Fame that did steroids. So with that being said, I find it hard to hold it against anybody before 05. Like, if the majority of their work was done before 05, like a Roger Clemens and like a Barry Bonds, like we go look at Barry. I mean, that's the 05 line. You look at all the years before that. I understand it went to another level when he was clearly on something in the 2000s. I don't know. I just feel like I have a hard time disqualifying them. For me, I would put Barry and Roger in. That's my personal opinion. I know a lot of people are passionate the other direction. But for me, I would put them in. So those 2 guys would definitely get my vote. I don't think they should have even been on this ballot. I think they should have been settled a long time ago. I find it very hard to tell the history of baseball without those 2 guys. That's just my personal opinion. Again, I know people are going to disagree. Bonds was like 130 pounds and then said, "Hold my beer," when he saw everyone else taking steroids. I kind of agree with that take too. I mean, I remember, 98, he wasn't really a part of that as much. What was his season in 98 like? Barry in 98 still put up 8.1 WAR, folks, with 44 doubles and 37 home runs, 122 RBIs, and came 8th in the MVP with 1,000 OPS, which was consistent for him, by the way, at this point. He was basically averaging over 1,000 OPS since 92. He's looking around and he's not getting the recognition that he thinks he deserves. He had already won the 3 MVPs, but that kind of waned during this period, right? People went to another level. Guys were hitting 60 and 70 home runs. So I understand a little bit of what was happening, and I do agree with only the clouds here that he saw that and he said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and show him what it's really all about when you combine skills plus ability. I mean, skills plus power. Like, now all of a sudden I can juice my power up. And yeah, it made him a complete monster. I mean, you go ahead and look at 2001 to 2004, where he's averaging 10 WAR per year, almost 11 WAR per year. And during that time period, he had a 1368 OPS, and he was the greatest hitter that anybody's ever seen. So, I don't know. This era, it was interesting to watch it because nobody's ever come close to this level of production. Not Judge, not Ohtani, not anybody. Barry was on a different place. I mean, they just stopped pitching to him. He has a 559 OPS for this stretch, right? So even if you take this out, I think he's in the Hall of Fame. But I do find it interesting that we got at least a glimpse of what peak baseball is for a hitter, right? Like this is as good as you could ever play. So I find that part fascinating. You know, in the case of Barry, as well as Roger, I think they're very similar. They played a little bit beyond 2005. They definitely, you know, it's pretty clear that they made some decisions along with the rest of the league, but they were better than everybody else that was on the field at that time. So I just find it hard to hold it totally against them, not knowing what the competition liked. And I would love to get into the chat, into a little bit of this debate, and then we'll go look at some of the other players. But this is the first layer of my thinking on this, and you know, I'm willing to evolve my thinking, but that's my first layer of thinking. So let me get into the chat here for a second. The thing that really bothers me is that Clemens and Bonds would have already been in had they retired before they started taking PED. Agreed, but I don't think in the moment as a player you're necessarily thinking about what it means to get in. You're thinking more about how you're going to dominate the competition. How am I going to win the World Series? So I think that was more of the calculus there than like, oh, I'm already into the Hall of Fame. I don't need to do this. I also think the moral compass that we speak with now, it was a little more of a gray area then. I mean, think about all the drugs that were over the counter at GNC that are banned now. You know, you think about the first thing that McGuire got caught with was the Jameson Taillon or whatever that's called. That was over the counter. That was from GNC. There was a lot of confusion, just like there is now about what AI means. There was a lot of confusion then about what is a steroid, what's a supplement, right? So I think there was a little bit of confusion about it to begin with. So I think it's easy to have clarity now, but I'm saying back then, I don't think there was any clarity. All right, let me get into some other people here. Don't think any PED guys should be in, but if one gets in and they have, then unfortunately they all have to get in. And this is part of my other problem. Prior to a couple people getting in that I'm pretty sure were on it, I feel like it's almost impossible to look at their career and not notice it or their body types. And I'm talking about three guys in particular. I'm talking about Mike Piazza, I'm talking about Jeff Bagwell, and I'm talking about Pudge Rodriguez. Those three, to me, are no doubters. They're no doubt they did some steroids. I don't know if they did it for the majority of their career, but they did steroids. They were great players. They're in the Hall of Fame. I know they didn't fail a test. They weren't on the Mitchell report necessarily, which was also a whole fugazi because the players were told that they were going to be granted anonymity for taking those tests to do an investigation into the amount of people that are on PEDs. And I don't know who got clean before that Mitchell report test or who didn't, but those names obviously all came out. That was a very crazy chain of custody with all that information, and a lot of those names got outed, but also the vast volume of names on that list is underrated. You're talking not 5 or 6 guys, you're talking almost 100 guys on that list alone. So my point is, you know, and I've played with old timers that were not stars of that era, but played in that era that dabbled with it as well. So my point is, it's just so hard to guess who was on, who wasn't on. And here I am sitting here guessing about 3 guys that are in the Hall of Fame, but I'm pretty sure, and it's pretty crazy to me. I mean, I've heard some stories about Pudge Rodriguez losing 40 pounds after the testing and then saying, oh, I went on a diet. It's like, okay. So that's part number 1. Let's see what else we got here in the chat. What % advantage did PEDs give a player? This is the ultimate question that nobody knows. So you see it when we talk about the prospects, right? Your physical tools and your physical stuff sets your ceiling, ultimately, right? Like without great physical tools, you're limited on how great you can be. But at its core, baseball is a skill sport. Without the skill component, your size means nothing. You could be Aaron Judge, but if you can't hit the ball, you're out of there, right? You have to have skill and size and power to go along with it. That power and skill piece is what sets your ceiling. So I do agree it pushes your ceiling up some. There's still an argument to be made that, you know, you still have to execute the skill sides of it. But I guess, you know, I think about it in the context of my own career. as you're going up in this direction in terms of intelligence and strategy, your body's going in this direction in terms of performance. If you're able to reverse that trend and then actually make your body go up in the same direction with your intellect, then yeah, I think in that moments, in those late career moments, the boost is probably as much as like 30, 40%. So we're talking big in terms of output, but it's diminished a little bit by the fact that you're facing guys that are also boosted by that same percentage, right? So again, we're talking about guys who were boosted, but were they above the playing field or were they on a level playing field? And I think we'll never really quite know the answer to that. But my sense is from talking to a lot of the guys that played in that era that it was a little bit more level, even with the steroids going on, than people realize, because it was that rampant in the game. It was that popular in the game. And not just steroids, greenies too. And if you don't think greenies are cheating, then you've just never played baseball. You've never been tired in August in a day game after a night game in a long stretch and never felt like, man, a pick-me-up would really help me right here. Well, guys were doing that for decades. So that's a whole nother conversation. A lot of those guys are Hall of Famers. So it's a big gray area. These substances are tough, and it's tough to give a percentage on it. But with the way I look at it, knowing that there are some people that have already been enshrined that are on it, it makes it hard for me to ignore the two greatest bulk plus peak guys of my era, besides like a Randy Johnson, who's already in, obviously, in Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds. So that's my first thought on that. All right, let me keep looking here. I don't think steroids should be accepted because everyone's doing it, but there's a level of how good you are when the steroid handicap can be surpassed. Subtract 50 WAR, and they're both still in. That's a great point, Maya, about these two players in particular. I mean, Clemens has 139.2 WAR. If you took 50 WAR away from him, he's around 90 WAR. That's a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame. That's north of Verlander. That's north of Scherzer. It's north of Kershaw, and those guys are all getting in. Barry, it's even more ridiculous. You delete 50 WAR from him, he's at 112.8 WAR, which is a shoo-in. So to Maya's point, they had plenty of WAR to shed. And again, this isn't a moral thing either. I mean, Ty Cobb is in, right? So there's a level of I don't know, morality that it's just hard to walk that line, I think. All right, let's keep going. I've always thought that steroids must have been hard to pass up for a high-use reliever, considering how much a drug that helps back and recover them. Agreed, totally agree. It's also like, again, you see your teammate next to you. All of a sudden, his performance improves. His health improves. He's feeling good all the time. And you're not. You're struggling. And he's like, well, if you just do a little bit of this, you'll feel great. It's very hard. It's the same reason why strikes and lockouts are hard. Like, people don't like to miss seasons. People, like, it's a short career. It's a short window to be great. And I do think the environment you're in definitely will impact whatever good or bad choices you make. Also, just look at the accolades here. I mean, I know that we've already gone over it, but for Barry, 7 MVPs, same with the 7 Cy Youngs for Clemens. Those have never been touched. You know, that's amazing. 14 All-Stars, 8 Gold Gloves, 12 Silver Sluggers. I mean, not to mention all the home run records, which are clearly tainted. But they're there. The numbers are in bold, so it's interesting to see. All right, here we go. Creatine's still legal, and there's nothing wrong with creatine, but creatine's another thing where it's like, you know, people, it's not like baseball players aren't still putting a whole bunch of scientific stuff in their bodies. Like, I'll make a whole video one time on my daily routine that I figured out over time. But I think like, it's still like, to the player, it's like, will this help me? Like, they don't really care where it comes from. It's just like, will this help me play better? So I'm taking 6, 7 different, pills, taking creatine, taking collagen, taking hydration stuff. You know, you're taking recovery things, magnesium after games. Like, all these things are great and are celebrated. But remember, for a long time, there was a gray area between supplements and performance enhancers. This is another good point. They're thinking about longevity too. Do anything to play the game as long as possible. So that's another thing too. Like, as your career starts to wind down in terms of physical ability, like mine was doing, you know, that's a big push out of the game. You're kind of like, can I really do this anymore? But if you know that there's a magic thing you can take that's going to extend your career, the thing you've dreamed of, the thing you've worked on your whole life, a lot of people are going to want to do that, you know. So it's understood in that way too. But I don't think that, like, people think actively about the Hall of Fame as much as people think. I think maybe there's a few players that are driven by that, but I think for the most part, it's play as long as you can, make as much money as you can, win as much as you can, just find out how good you can be. Those are the main things. Oh, David Ortiz is another one that's been pointed out. He was on the Mitchell report, so clearly he's getting a pass here. So again, it's just like you can't have a double standard. Jared's even throwing out Ricky into this mix. I don't know that for sure. I hadn't even considered that, but he did play an awful long time. And there's so many things about PEDs that do help you. They allow you to recuperate faster. I think, Jason Giambi, when I talked to him about his PED use, one of the things he mentioned to me was that he just felt great all the time. If you go look at his MVP season, which would be fun to do actually right now, because he's not going to the Hall of Fame. He's another one that's kind of like, probably overshadowed by a lot of the other guys that have way better numbers, even though he had 50 WAR. But if you go look at his MVP season this year right here, which was absurd, and you break it down by month, he once showed me by month. He hit 20 pumps in September to get him to 43. So he's like everybody else is not everybody, but a lot of guys are fading at that time of the year, and I'm peaking. That's an advantage. So that's a specific anecdote from a player about how it can be an advantage late in a season. But he's the only person I've ever met that was even close to transparent on anything when I would talk to him about it. All right, what else we got here? In high school, the coaches were passing around old school Sudafed to us before games. Exactly. That's going to sharpen your focus. It's kind of like a mild greenie. I know, for example, that back in the day in the Major League clubhouses, there used to be 2 coffee machines, right? There was the coffee that was the regular coffee, and there was the coffee that was completely filled with the greenies or the amphetamines. So it was like, this was normal. I know players, and I'm not going to say their names, but I know players that when the amphetamine and the greenie ban came in, they questioned whether they could keep playing. So again, like you're just dealing with a sport that plays 162 games in 180 something days. It's fundamentally about mental focus, constant cycle of performing and recovering, figuring out how to pull yourself up every day and go out there. And for a while, players had all these boosts. A lot of guys that are in the Hall of Fame. When you talk about greenies, I mean, shit, the entire 80s and 90s, every player. Just assume every player was on them. So I just find it hard for those guys to then sit there and be on this moral high ground over everybody else, in my personal opinion. All right, let's keep it moving in the chat. Obviously, it's frustrating that some guys got caught and some didn't, but you have to draw a line somewhere, and got caught is the only reasonable one. Otherwise, it's just speculation and witch hunts. I just draw it after 05. That's my personal line. I agree with you having a line there, Maya. I think that's a fair line. Got caught or didn't get caught. It's just frustrating because you know that there's people that were cheating that didn't get caught, and that sucks. Like, so you're better at sneaking around, and therefore you're clean. I don't know. It's hard. If we throw Clemens and Bonds on the water and they float, are they witches? Do current players talk about the Hall of Fame? Definitely. But again, it's so much debate. I think a lot of the debate now is about whether you have to have this long career to be in or not. I think for me, I'm more of like, if you had a truly electric peak, like a Johan Santana, I'd be in favor of voting for a guy like that. I think you can get in multiple ways in my version of my Hall of Fame, like if I had a vote. So again, if I had a vote in this past one right here, it would be really hard for me because I can make a case for all 6. I think Valenzuela's case is a little bit more... I think Fernando's case is a little bit... Let me go back to the actual players. I think Fernando's case is more cultural. He doesn't quite hit the benchmarks in terms of like a long enough peak or a long enough career overall for me to vote him in. So I would have not given him my vote because you can only get 3 votes. Sheffield, I actually think, has a pretty good case to be in the Hall of Fame. I know that there's some steroid noise with him, but I put him in the same boat as these other guys. And truly, like growing up, he was so iconic and so scary that like in my brain, he's Hall of Fame. But I do think he's behind. Like if Barry and Roger aren't in, then he's behind them. But my point is, I would put Gary Sheffield in over some guys that are in. So he wouldn't have got my vote this time, but I would have been thinking about him. Dale Murphy is, I've mentioned this before when I've talked about Dale Murphy. He is in the era right before I understand baseball. So I know he was the best player of his era, great center fielder, but I don't have a great feel for that. I would have to do a bigger, deeper dive. And realistically, realistically, I feel more passionate about two of these other guys. So my last vote would come down to Delgado, Kent, or Mattingly. Now, I know Kent gets in on the strength of the numbers, and we'll go through Kent in a minute. He would have not got my vote this time just because I never thought of him as a Hall of Famer in the moment. Like, he didn't feel prestigious enough to be a Hall of Famer. Now, when you go look at the sum of the parts and the numbers, you can get there, and we'll do that in a minute, and I see why he got the votes. But my vote would have went to Delgado or Mattingly. I'm tempted to say Mattingly because I know Mattingly was the best player for a 5 or 6 year stretch, and to me, that matters. Also, I'm biased, and I'm willing to admit that. Delgado, I think, is on my list, and I'd like to go take a deeper look at his case here in a second. But that would have been my 3 votes. I would have voted for the 2 monsters, Bonds and Clemens, and I would have voted for Donnie, and I would have kept it moving through this vote personally. But let's go look at Jeff Kent, Carlos Delgado, and Don Mattingly now that we're kind of done talking about the steroid guys. I know there's more stuff in the chat, and we'll look at those in a second here. Normalize putting less stock in the Hall of Fame discussion. It's a novelty in an old boys club. The bottom 99% of baseball history is more interesting than the 1%. Okay. I just think it's a fun talking point. Everybody has a great opinion on it, and that's why I like it relative to the other leagues, because it's not so obvious. Also, the criteria is kind of all over the board. So, yeah. So this has lessened a little bit over the times. If I saw the numbers this year for TUEs, and they're way down. At one point, it was crazy the amount of players that were on this, and I actually had somebody who once gave me advice to go get tested for this. He said, "Oh, this will fix your command problems," and I was just like, "What are you talking about? I don't have ADHD, so I'm not gonna go get Adderall TUE just to go perform. I can pitch. Like, I just need to be better." But obviously, I think other people took that other route and needed a little help. So, okay, here's the other argument that I actually don't mind. This is a good argument. Juicing kept good players from getting into the Hall of Fame. Players that we think didn't juice, that were in that same era, that get overlooked because their numbers are dwarfed by the Hall of Fame guys. I can get on board with a little bit of disappointment for those players. I can. I see where you're coming here for sure, Kev. I do. All right, what else we got? I don't think we'll be watching this. Sorry, Turbo. I know he's also, for people who are into Survivor, Jeff Kent. They might have some thoughts about him. All right, here we go. What about today's player who get so many perks with trainers, food experts, pitch counts, arm braces, and so much technology to make them better? Yeah, that's a level playing field. That's a level playing field. All good things, but everybody has access to that stuff. So I've learned my lesson of comparing eras. I'm no longer in the business of saying, oh, this era would kick the shit out of the previous eras. You know what? They're different eras. We'll separate them out. That's my point. If you were the best in your time period, that's what should get you. If you're in the top, 1/10 of 1%, that's the separator within your own era in my mind. I wonder if Tatis has a chance to be voted in. Technically got suspended. He's so far away from there. I don't think Mattingly wouldn't be talked about as much if he weren't a Yankee. Perhaps. I mean, he plays for the most famous team in an era where they didn't win anything. But he was an iconic player. Let's go look at his numbers real quick. Let's just dive back in for a second on a few of these guys. So the big thing with Mattingly is he was on the Hall of Fame track when he abruptly retired, right? 42.4 WAR, 307 career average, 830 career OPS, and then the big one, 9 Gold Gloves and an MVP. So he has a lot of the immediate things you would look for, but the longevity piece is missing. Had injury issues, retired after 95, which is crazy. Negative WAR that year, still hit 288. But yeah, retired after this year. If he would have hung around to get over the 50 WAR, suddenly his case looks a little different. And I agree, it's a different type of ball player than a lot of the guys that are in the Hall of Fame. I mean, look, he only has 222 home runs, 422 doubles is great. But it's really about the sum of the parts, the defense, and then this peak right here, which is really, really strong. 84 to 89, averaging 5.5 WAR per game. win the Gold Glove every year with a 900 OPS, even setting some weird records like that, although that home run streak. So I don't know. Look, I mean, I'm a little bit biased. I grew up a Yankee fan. Donnie Baseball is important to me and a whole group of people that where he kind of brought the Yankees through the dark times, back into the light times, and he didn't get to enjoy any of those spoils because he was done early. But I also think there's more to consider. It's not just his playing career. You also are allowed to consider other things. He was a manager of the year. He's been in baseball for 40 years. I think he's pretty close to the line. It's also a little bit misunderstood about how valuable his defense was. Now, I know Keith Hernandez isn't in as well. He's probably the guy that you would compare him to. I think both of them deserve to be in. I think that it's hard to tell the story of baseball without those two guys. But the concept of the Yankee thing, I can't deny that. That's probably true. At least in my head, I probably wouldn't care about him as much if he wasn't a Yankee. I'll agree with that. All right, let me move down here a little bit in the chat. Brooknose Ball has a great VOPS, volume OPS stat on Mattingly. If you haven't followed Brooknose Ball on Instagram or TikTok or any of that stuff, she's got some good stats. So she's come up with her own volume OPS is a fascinating stat, showing how if you get to your OPS with more batting average in there as opposed to just walks, overall, you're actually doing more damage and helping your team win more. She got a couple of interesting stats that really favor a guy like Donnie Baseball, so it's interesting to look at that stuff. Agreed, I've evolved as well to, besides compare eras, if a guy was the best at his position in his era, at least top 3 or so he should be in. Yeah, I think it's just you got to compare apples to apples. That's the bottom line. It's really hard to compare apples to oranges. I tried to do it in the past, and it was stupid. So I kind of know that. All right, what else we got? Mattingly is a Hall of Fame, then Keith has to be in too. Yep, we just discussed that. I can't help thinking Jeff Kent learned to circumvent steroid rules from Bonds because he wasn't that good with the Mets. So it's interesting. I watched Jeff talk a little bit yesterday at his reaction to getting in. He talked a little bit about how he started using the whole field. So let's get into these other guys that I wanted to talk about. Jeff Kent, we put him on the thumbnail because he's the one who got in. I haven't even looked at him yet, and we're 37 minutes into the stream. All right, Jeff Kent ends up with 55.4 WAR, 2,461 hits, 377 homers, 290 average. So those numbers are awfully similar to like a Todd Helton with less batting average. But compared to second baseman, he's literally he's literally the best second baseman ever in a lot of these counting stats. Most homers, a lot of these numbers. So it's like now we're comparing him to apples, right? Catcher, second baseman to second baseman. But if you go look at his career where it really took off, was in San Francisco. And he talked about it a little bit yesterday that his batting average rose a lot. So I'm curious what that looks like. In San Fran, he batted 297 in 6 years. And before that, he was a 279 hitter with the Mets. And then, I mean, shit, he was in Cleveland only barely, right? Before he got to San Fran and he hit 265. It's not a huge jump up, but it's definitely a jump up. He talked about using the whole field more. Interestingly, his power numbers also went up, which you could say is a little bit suspicious, especially in San Francisco, because it's not a very good hitting place. RBI numbers are probably going to be a little bit inflated for him because he was batting behind Barry a lot, and Barry was obviously constantly on base. But overall, this is a numbers-driven argument. Got MVP votes in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons, including winning the MVP in 2000. And again, compared to second basemen, he compares very, very well. If we go down here to this Hall of Fame section, which is in here somewhere, I believe. How do I look at his Hall of Fame stuff? Hall of Fame statistics. Not enough gray ink, but Hall of Fame monitor 123. Likely Hall of Famer would be right around 100. Hall of Fame standards batting 51. Average Hall of Famer is 50. So he's clearing the bar statistically, and I think that's ultimately what gets him in here. Also, I don't know. I just feel like people just look at him like he wasn't a steroid guy. So, and especially with the voting body that he just had, you know what I mean? Like, I think if you look at the old timers, they clearly weren't going to vote in Bonds or Clemens. And then they go look at the bulk performances of like a Mattingly, and they're not going to vote for him. I thought Dale Murphy was ripe to get in, but it does push Jeff Kent across the line. Here are his similar players all time. Robinson Cano, who without steroids would be in for sure. It's not that inspiring after that right away. Aramis Ramirez, Torrey Hunter, Miguel Tejada. But then it's guys who did get in. Dave Parker, Jim Rice, Scott Rowland. Luis Gonzalez is probably not going to get in. Brian Sandberg's in. So he's literally similar to 5 Hall of Famers on his reference page. And again, in second base, which is a little bit of a lower bar to clear because there's not as many great second basemen. Like, where does he compare to Roberto Alomar? So he's got 55 WAR. Let's see where Alomar was, because Roberto Alomar is one of my favorite players, but he was also more of a defensive wizard. He's got more WAR too, 67 WAR. See, I thought Roberto Alomar felt like a Hall of Famer the whole way, whereas Jeff Kent didn't to me, and that's why he probably wouldn't have got my vote, but I understand why he did get it. Jeff hitting so many home runs in Candlestick Park that was known to dead and fly balls in suspect, in your opinion. So yeah, you can definitely say that. I mean, who knows? But also, him and Barry never got along. Maybe this was a point of contention. You know, this guy's on steroids, I'm not. I don't know. You know, I remember him being a little pissy at times, Jeff Kent, to the media, and that probably hurt him the most in the first time around through the ballot. Because again, the media has to vote you in, and if you're icy to them, that's probably not going to fly. So I find that fascinating. That's Roberto Alomar. Okay, let's go to a look at a fellow Puerto Rican, Delgado, and I'm curious to compare Delgado to like a Fred McGriff who just got in. So Delgado's WAR is a bit short, 44.4 WAR. Did hit 473 pumps, 280 average, 1,500 RBIs, 929 career OPS. Trying to figure out where his peak was. Obviously, it was with Toronto. Yeah, I guess it's probably from 98 to, let's say, 03. So in this stretch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons, he averaged 5.3 WAR per year. It's less than the Mattingly in the peak. So Mattingly's peak's a little higher by WAR, although Delgado's hitting a lot of home runs. So it's a little bit of a different case, you know, more of an offensive case relative to Mattingly. I don't think he clears Mattingly. I think they're right around the same in terms of overall worth of their careers, but I don't think he clears Mattingly, so I think I would have voted for Donnie over him. But Delgado was great. He had good longevity, you know, solid longevity, not crazy longevity. He was done at 37. But yeah, you know, it's hard to discount the 473 homers. Let me look at Fred McGriff, because he just got in. Crime Dog. Crime Dog's got about 8 more WAR than him, did hold on for 3 more seasons than him. Ended up hitting more homers than him, barely, 493. About the same average, about the same RBIs. I think these guys are awfully close. I don't see hardly any difference between McGriff and Delgado personally. Hardly any. So to me, he kind of feels like he should be in. I don't know. Do you feel that character is a big of a hall? Is that big of a character category for Hall of Fame? I don't think it's been like historically that important. There's a lot of guys that are POSs that are in the Hall of Fame. I think it could help you, but I definitely think it matters in terms of the voting. The voters feel bitter; they don't vote you in. Look, I don't like Curt Schilling, but Curt Schilling deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and because the voters don't like him, and because basically on his 10th time through the ballot he says it's not worth it, I don't want your votes, he's not in the Hall of Fame. So there's a lot of politics with this, you know? And there's also a lot of voters that will literally turn in an empty ballot every year, which is insane. Even the David Wright thing, like, it's funny. I find it hilarious, and I kind of like it in a way. The single vote for David Wright that's going around right now, but at the same time, it's insane. You can't look at that ballot and say he's the only one worthy of inclusion. So it's like, if people are going to make a mockery of the system, then the results are going to end up in a mockery, which is kind of where we are. All right, what else we got here? Living in steroid era, it was disturbing to see Bonds and Lenny Dykstra a huge head size increase. Yeah, I mean, that's for sure. There was some... That's so crazy. Your skull's growing. It's probably a bad sign. All right, what we got, Carl? If Delgado's hip doesn't get out at the end, he probably gets to 500 home runs and gets in. Yeah. I don't know. Delgado looking awfully good to me. I know that he doesn't quite get there on WAR. He was a bad defender, to put it mildly. Also, he's got a Clemente Award on him. Like, that's a very prestigious award. If you got the Roberto Clemente Award, that would, to me, that's evidence of that's evidence of being a humanitarian, or, you know, being about others, basically being a genuinely good human. Now, Nelson Cruz got one of these, and he took steroids after 05. That always did not sit right with me at all. He also homered off me in a year that he was suspended, which didn't sit right with me at all. And I don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy. I never played with him. But that didn't sit right with me, because you know the rules now. To me, once you're after 05, it's cut and dry. Like Robinson Cano, one of my favorite players, I'm still not putting him in the Hall of Fame. So anyway, that's a little bit of information there. Let's keep going. I think in this day and age, when we are rethinking so many other things, baseball needs to catch up to the social revolution and start thinking way more about character. It's a combination of both. All right, here we go. I never liked David Wright after he yelled at Freddie Freeman. I don't remember this episode, but I wasn't like locked in on every Mets game, I guess, during the David Wright era. Bonds started 7 1/4, ended with an 8. My God, that's insane. That's wild. That's so wild. His head grew 3/4 of an inch. That's just scary. That's just freaky deaky scary stuff. All right, so J-Mo's gonna come in about 12 minutes, so we'll still keep kicking this around for a little bit longer. Who else was on the list? Valenzuela. Fernando Valenzuela. So, I mean, iconic player. Can't tell the history of baseball without this guy either. But to me, he's more in the Dodgers legend than baseball legend category. I know his initial shot into big leagues was insane. I mean, you go look at these early years. Actually, this is quite a long peak, but it's an exceptional peak. So he's averaging 4.5 WAR for his first essentially 6 seasons in the league, 7 seasons in the league, from 20 to 26. He goes 111 and 82, 3.11 ERA, 96 complete games, 27 shutouts. ERA plus was still only 115, which I find interesting. I don't know. He was a great player, but he didn't really strike out a lot of guys. He was more hittable than a lot of the other Hall of Famers. And then his career completely falls off a cliff after that. You know, from 88 all the way to 97, he's still playing part-time in the big leagues. But he's averaging, you know, 0.6 WAR per season from the rest of the way. So that's not a statistical reason to put him in the Hall of Fame. Like, this is one of those things where, you know, God forbid he died after 1987, he would definitely have gotten into the Hall of Fame off the strength of this initial burst into his career, because then we'd be wondering, well, is he the most legendary pitcher of all time? This is kind of like a Kurt Cobain situation. Like, Kurt Cobain dies, and we're just wondering about all the amazing music he would have put out after, but maybe he declines, and maybe his music would have been shitty, tainting his legacy. Sometimes dying at the right moment puts you into a stratosphere of legendary status that maybe you wouldn't deserve if you stayed alive. And that's the case with Valenzuela. Like, if we don't see him anymore after 87, he's definitely going in the Hall of Fame based off this start plus cultural impact. But then he played the rest of this way, you know, and was pretty not, you know, pretty pedestrian player for the rest of the way. It's more of the cultural impact, and you still feel it every single day when you're at Dodger Stadium. You know, the Mexican-American impact. He was a phenom. You know, he came up and he captured the attention of an entire, you know, baseball world, especially in LA. So that would be the argument for Valenzuela. But, you know, statistically, there isn't really much of an argument because of this stuff that happened at the end. Now, I would argue that this peak is pretty spectacular. It's not quite Johan Santana peak or Tim Lincecum peak, even though that was shorter. But it's a really good peak. It's also fascinating to be done, basically, with being good at 26. Like, I just started becoming good at 26, so I find that a fascinating kind of reverso career here. What else we got in the chat? We got a lot of people talking here. Valenzuela has more impact culturally than his numbers, to be honest. This is coming from a Dodgers fan who is Latino. Agree with Adam. So yeah, like I feel it. Obviously, you know it's real. You know it's real. But I don't know if that gets you across the line or not. You know, I don't know. All right, what else we got here? Yeah, I wonder about all the great music or careers of all the members of the 27 Club could have put out / had. Yeah, all the people who passed away at 27. It's a huge list. I'm not going to go through all of them, but that's a huge list. Fernando is why my whole family is Dodger fans. He brought something to us that we hadn't yet had, representation. See, this is key. This is key. And don't think that the same thing's not happening with the Japanese people right now in LA. So, look, I mean, at the end of the day, it's an entertainment. Like, we all love to argue about the granular nature of these numbers and greatness and what they all mean and different eras. But I do think the cultural stuff is so important to always highlight and to remember. You know, it's why I feel strongly about even like a Tim Lincecum, because even though it was a small window, I mean, he made baseball special to so many people, kids and people connected with him that wouldn't have connected with a baseball player previously. And Fernando was that way. And obviously he brought a lot of representation to people out in California. And I just think that's so important. And that would be my overall argument for getting him in. All right, what else we got here? Does Hall of Fame jury panel have lifetime position or short-term position? I don't really know how this works. I feel like people get votes, lose votes over time. It's kind of a mixed bag. And maybe we should ask somebody who has a vote. I should probably ask Joel Sherman or somebody like that. They might know a little bit more. There's a whole bunch of argument over the Brook Knows Ball stats in the chat. I don't know. I just think it's curious to look. I've always preferred, just to talk about statistics for a minute. I love OPS, but I've always preferred if your overall on-base percentage is aided by a little bit more batting average, because I've seen how a single can advance a run or two bases where a walk cannot. Like when LeMahieu was winning the batting title and had like kind of a mediocre OPS, I still felt like he was a super valuable player above probably where the OPS would value him, if that makes sense, because his batting average is so high. Same with McNeil. And those guys are getting hits and they're moving runners first to third or second to home. They're forcing pitchers out of the strike zone because suddenly they get hit. So I think there's value with a lot of that stuff. I just wanted to point that out as a little bit of nuance of why I think it matters a little bit, why I think batting average as a component of your OPS is important, and I'd rather that be skewed a little bit higher than just the walk component, if that makes sense. Should be an exclusive club of elite war guys, supposed to be a tapestry of important notable players, moments, and teams. See, I'm more in the latter. I think it's more about telling the story of baseball with, you know, whether that's the Phoenixes, the guys that were rocket ships and then faded quick, or whether it's the guys that hung around forever. We've often joked on Major League buses that if anybody plays 20 years in the big leagues, whether they're good or not, they should go to the Hall of Fame, because that's impossible to do in this era. You know, the longevity piece is so hard to do, such a hard plane to land. So I don't know. It's evolving. I have a feeling that we're very far away from seeing a lot of these guys' ultimate fates. I think a lot of people will get more consideration way down the line as they continue to create these new committees that are obviously, you know, kind of strategically generated to produce a certain result. So we'll see how the Hall of Fame handles that in Major League Baseball as well. Do you think Tatis will face the PED scrutiny or not, since he has somewhat of a believable excuse? It's not believable to me. You're told every step of the way to not put anything in your body or on your body that you're not sure about, especially if you're in a Latin country. They tell you straight up, if you're going back to Mexico, Dominican, Puerto Rican, be careful about the creams that these doctors are giving you. There's a whole hotline set up. So even though he might have done it and it might have been an honest mistake, he was warned beforehand about making that honest mistake. So that's why it's tough. Where I used to panic all the time is I used to think about, like, what if a piece of meat is tarnished or something that's in the clubhouse, or, you know, I don't know, somebody comes and messes with something that you're eating and then you get popped. Like, that's a scary scenario. But I've never come across anything quite like that. I know there was a weird one with, who was the big righty DH that got popped for steroids with the Blue Jays and it pretty much ended his career? Colabello, and he was saying it had something to do with dog food or something. But again, like, I don't know, hard to believe. Plus, I think Fernando, ultimately, I think he gets a little bit more suspicion because of his dad as well. His dad was also clearly a steroid guy, so that's a little bit more suspicion. All right, here we go. Yeah, women and children loved him. He was the guy for those people in San Fran for sure. Here's the 27 club, in case you're wondering what we're talking about. Cobain, Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, they all passed away at 27. Legends, but we don't know what their careers would have been like after that. Oh, yeah, I guess Juice WRLD, too. That's a whole new thing. I don't know a lot about that. The single in OPS helps the slugging and on the on-base part, though while a walk is only on base. Yeah, it helps the slugging boost a little bit. I just think, I don't know, you see some guys that are so good at walking, like a Daniel Vogelback, but they don't really get hits. Like there's some power in there. I don't know, I just felt like the OPS is so inflated. Also, like if you can't turn a single into a dangerous proposition on getting on base, like, I don't know, it's not the same value. So, I don't know, it's all good. Keith Hernandez kicked back in the dugout with a Marlboro, typical man. that was amazing back in the day. Amy Winehouse is also, I guess, 27. That's a whole world. I like Fangraphs ERA minus stat on these discussions going back in baseball history because it's a quick way to see how far above average their ERA was to their peers. That's a good point. That's comparing apples to apples. That's a better way of comparing things because clearly the game has changed so much over time. So, D-backs signed Michael Soroka. We'll definitely look at that after I talk to JMO, which should be coming up here in a couple minutes. He's not there yet, so no reason to hop off yet. Okay, that was it. So we covered that contemporary ballot. One guy gets in. We're gonna do a whole show on the regular ballot where we'll fill out a 10 pack. So that's kind of the way I feel. But I don't know. It's been an interesting couple days watching this because I just assumed that Dale Murphy and Donnie Baseball were gonna get the edge here, whereas I was stunned to see Jeff Kent get in. It's a statistical case, and it's a really good case. But I was surprised. I was surprised, to be honest with you. All right, here we go. What I'm saying, Adam, is that it doesn't take away fault from the Tatis because they were told all the time, but I don't think he was trying to get buff and cheat that way necessarily. Yeah, I mean, everybody's always saying that after the fact. Like, I don't know. I don't even know why some guys do it. The D. Gordon thing blew my mind. He had a guaranteed contract. There's no power in his game, and yet he's doing steroids. Like, who knows? Who knows? Who knows why people do stuff, you know? But I also will say this too, and I say this because sometimes it's a little hard to judge people when you don't understand the world that they come from. Like when you grow up in the Dominican and your whole goal and everybody's goal around you, all the kids you grow up with, is to find a way to be great enough hitting this ball with this stick that you get off this island, you go to America and you become rich and you bring back that money and make a better life for your family. There's a lot of competition with that. There's a lot of bad advice with that. It's kind of the wild, wild west. You got Buscones coming around. Sometimes they're telling their kids what they got to be doing. So I'm willing to understand that there's a lot of factors here that make decisions tough. I just know that after you're in the big leagues and you've been in the meetings all spring training and you know the rules at that point. So I think it's a little bit different. But I do think coming over from especially the Latin America countries where you can get stuff right over the counter in Mexico that's illegal here. I get it. It's a little bit of a different world and it's a little bit of a gray area, and that needs to be taken into account. And I'm not like saying that you're a bad person because you make a mistake or whatever. I'm just saying that there's a lot that goes into these things. Sorry, he says he's still 3 minutes away. I don't know why it's such a small committee that decides these things. These committees are just made up. They just decided to make a new committee. There's 3 ways to get in. There's that other ballot that probably will come in later. It's like from the previous era. I don't remember what they called that. Then there's this contemporary ballot, and then there's the main ballot. So they're just making up new ways to potentially get guys in until they figure it out. Very, very crazy. Also, the 3 votes each. Like if 6 people are I don't like the 3 votes each. I agree with Jared on this part. If there's 3 votes only and you have 6 candidates, but you think all 6 are worthy, how do you parse through that? Or if you think, I don't know, I don't like it. I think you should be able to vote for everybody if you want to. But again, I don't make the rules. We just have to react to it. Feels like an Illuminati voting committee. Very mysterious. I respect A-Rod for talking about it and being open to it. So listen, A-Rod has to do that now. He had no other option. He was publicly disgraced. He served the longest suspension in the history of baseball. I would just be careful with Alex. Always understand that he's always worried about how he's being perceived. So now he's run out of ways to sugarcoat his life, and now he's leaning into the authenticity piece. But is it really authentic or not? I don't know. You be the judge. Go watch that Alex versus A-Rod documentary. Now, and I think A-Rod's one of the greatest players who ever lived. But it's crazy to me that he went back into the steroid thing after the like. I just don't get it. I just don't get that decision-making process. So I love that he's talking about things openly, but I don't know. I just have a hard time with him. The problem with PEDs is that they work. You can see why that would be so tempting for guys trying to hit their way to the minor leagues. Honestly, this is a good point, Maya. Really, the ones that were all that were the most guaranteed to do it were the ones that were the 4A players. They're stuck in AAA. They know if they can hit for a little more power, or they can throw 2 miles an hour harder. They're a big leaguer, but they're not currently there. Lot of incentive to do stuff right there. I think of like a Shane Spencer. I don't know if he did or didn't, but he was the type of guy that was like a 4A player, came up, had a rocket ship little run with the Yankees. I don't know. It's that type of player, that 4A player that's trying to actually have a career in baseball, or are they going to miss out on that career? And there's something sitting right in front of them that can help them. That's the tough choice. That's the tough choice. Everything A-Rod says seems like it came out of a focus group, seemed like a politician. That's kind of how I look at it as well, a little bit. I've just seen him talking about it as of late and thought he was transparent. I mean, he's been transparent now. He has to be. That's my only point. Like, it's great. It's great that we've gotten to this point. But remember, like, we have decades of stuff with him, you know, to know what type of person he is. So, and kind of some of the stuff he's done. I have one question. When Gordon got popped, is there any truth behind him being set up for? I mean, that's insane. That's an insane thing that he's been saying. If that's true, we have way bigger conspiracies about this Harper thing. But I don't know. D. Gordon was an okay player. He's fast. He slapped the ball around. It was crazy when he got popped for steroids. That was crazy. Blew my freaking mind. Blew my mind. And did I watch the A-Rod doc? I've watched some of it. JMO's here, so I'm going to get him in a minute. I watched some of it. I haven't finished it yet, but we'll get there. We'll get there in a minute. All right, let me take a quick break. I'll bring JMO on. Maybe we'll continue this later. We have a couple things to break down. So I'm going to mute myself. Remind me to unmute when I come back. All right, I'll see you in a bit. All right, we're going to bring JMO in here in a second. I just have to do my usual post them into the browser. And then we will get chatting here.
Savant page, dude.
Nah, don't worry. I have some questions about it, but nothing crazy. All right, JMO, thanks for joining me, bro. I appreciate you hopping on.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me.
My first question is, can you quickly compare and contrast the New York City off-season process versus Arizona off-season process?
Dude, I'll tell you what, it's a lot easier in Arizona. I'm actually here at our complex right now, but I really loved New York. I mean, there was a reason I was living there in the off season. Like, me and my wife both just really loved it, but it was a lot harder to find someone to throw with and then go find a PT to do arm care and stuff and then go work out somewhere separate. It was like, really full long days riding the subway around to different spots to meet up with people.
Yeah, I think I'm the only guy that like stuck it out for as long as I did. Like, most people are just like, I'm going to Florida, I'm going to Texas, I'm going to Arizona. Like, it's just everything's right in front of you, and you're surrounded by more pro players. I'm sure you see pro guys all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, we were in Chicago until Thanksgiving this year, and I think people are freaked out that we even choose to do that, but it's like, you're in these amazing cities and you have some time off and you get to like experience things that you don't otherwise get to experience. I was hitting up Bulls games and Blackhawks games and all that. So, but yeah, once you're in Arizona for me, or like, Florida back when I had spring training there, it's like that's kind of a sign it's time to lock it in and really get working. But I play for the tie when I'm in Chicago and then play for the win when I'm in Arizona.
That makes sense. I was always a little jealous of it because I can see how, training outdoors. I don't know. When I would show up to spring training and I had been inside the whole time, always took me a few days. Like it was jarring, like every time. So I remember
Yeah.
LeMay who told me the downside was you almost feel like you're never out of baseball. So maybe you're getting the best of both of it. Like you get your little time in Chicago and then you're out there
Yeah.
to train.
I throw into a net for the first month, and then I came down here, put on cleats for the first time, and had a catch partner. And I felt like I had never played catch before. But then, after 2, 3 days, like you said, it's just back to totally normal.
Yeah. All right. So, what's your current coffee setup these days? Like, what do you go with these days? I know that you're a big coffee guy, but you're not. Are you not much of an espresso guy? You're more of like a drip
Yeah.
guy.
So I'll do an espresso drink every once in a while if I'm out, but at home it's all drip. I have in Chicago, it's called Aiden by Fellow. It's a pretty incredible coffee maker. I got that on Black Friday last year. And then down here I have what's called a Mocha Master. And then in both spots I've got pour over setups, scales, cold brew makers, all that. So definitely into it.
All right. Nice. All right. So I'm gonna hop over here for a second because I was just curious to look. I watched you pitch in the postseason this year, which was great. You got two starts. Which I
Yeah.
was juiced. I know that before you had only gotten a little bit of action in that Cleveland series, and then you had one start in the Houston series in the ALCS in 22. And then this year you ended up getting starts in both games. The council didn't let you pitch very long because your pitch counts were low.
Yep.
But I thought you threw great, man. How'd you feel in the postseason action this year?
Yeah, no, I got those two starts, and then actually in Game 5 of the wild card, I was about to start getting hot if we had tied it up there in the ninth. So yeah, it was cool to be such a big part of it. I mean, obviously there's a lot of randomness to baseball, but I think there's an art to pitching in the postseason, and for me, it's like I've watched enough baseball as a fan. I feel like when you see guys getting into trouble in the postseason, they try to change what they do. They might get too fine. They start walking guys. So for me, it was doing what I do, filling it up, mixing, and then obviously like my biggest downside is I give up the long ball too much, and so in the playoffs, I knew I had a shorter pitch count, and I was like, I'm just gonna do obviously my research, do my studying, and find out where guys' hot zones are, and I'm just not gonna give in. Like my command's good enough, and a winner take all type game to just not give in. And I knew I had a full bullpen behind me, and they weren't gonna be shy, so I was like, I'm just gonna be really stubborn with my locations.
Yeah, you try to really lean into like getting away from their slugging areas.
Yep. Yeah. So if it's June and I'm 1-0 on a guy, I might challenge a guy over the plate with a cutter or something. And in the playoffs, I'm like, I'm either getting this to the edge or off. And if I fall behind 2-0, so be it. And if I do end up walking a guy, I know I've got a stacked bullpen out there.
How much of your ability to attack the zone um, is kind of emboldened by the defense that you have playing behind you right now.
Yeah, no, it's a big deal. I've always had like even since I was a little kid, I've thrown strikes. But I do think, playing at Wrigley, which has played pretty pitcher friendly the last few years, and then with our defense, like you'd be crazy not to fill it up. So yeah, I mean, we've got gold glovers all over the field, hard nosed guys all over the field that want the ball. So yeah, I mean, that definitely gives me confidence too. Just screw it. PCA's out there somewhere. Hit it.
Yeah, why do you think that Wrigley's playing a little more pitcher friendly recently? I know that there's a wind factor there, but I always felt like it was one of the better places to hit when I was younger in my career. Any thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
when the wind's, it's interesting. When the wind is neutral or obviously blowing out, like those gaps play really small. It's like 368 to left center and right center, which is small, but it's deep down the lines. Like if that wind is even neutral or God forbid blowing in for hitters, like it's really hard to hit it out down the line to left or right. It's like 355. I think we're the deepest down the lines.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's shorter in the gaps, but it's deep down the lines. And lately the wind has just been blowing in a lot.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little bit underrated how deep it is right down the lines. Like it really juts out there. Like it's a huge difference for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
no, it's a big deal. I saw Patrick Wisdom in 2000. What was that? 24. Hit a ball against the Cardinals like 110 at 33 down the line or something, and it wasn't a home run.
mm.
And you just see some of that, which you just don't see in a lot of places.
Yeah, this year it played as the 22nd best park for offense. Looks like the only thing that it added anything to was triples, but I guess you probably just had a few balls that got kind of in the ivy out
Yeah,
there. That's about it.
yep, yep. And
Yeah.
if you go down the lines, you can run.
I've noticed over the last few years that the Cubs tend to player development a little bit differently than the other guys. For some of the guys, some of the teams, at least it seems like the guys that you have around are mostly pitchability guys. I mean, you have a Palencia in the bullpen, but you have a good pitchability group. I mean, Matt Boyd, yourself, even Horton a little bit coming up.
Yeah,
I don't know, Imanaga certainly. Um, I'm wondering what the mantra is there. Is it more like we're going to find a way to be efficient and try to get deep into the games. And strikeouts are important, but we're
yep.
not going to do nothing but hunt strikeouts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely think, from what I've heard at least, like we are trying to add some swing and miss to our rotation and our pen. But I'm pretty sure last year we had the most efficient pitches per inning in all of baseball. And I mean, I don't. So at first, I think it was just like they were adding quality arms, and it was what it was. And then once our defense became what it was, now they're targeting guys that don't walk guys, and have a really solid pitch mix. Um, yeah, they're big on the pitching side, talking about strike one. That's just huge for us. It's big everywhere, but here, like, it's a part of our identity. We talk about it a lot on the pitching side, and then we do bring up our defense a lot. Um, so yeah, I mean, and even on the position player side, like you look at our position players, we've got like a pretty interesting group. A lot of like smaller guys. The league's going more and more physical. We've got just a lot of ball players. You look around, you got Michael Bush, Nico Horner, Dansby, Matt Shaw. Like PCA's not that big. We've got a lot of like fast, good base runners, really good at defense. So it's a fun team. Like I think our brand of baseball is just a lot of fun to watch. Throw a lot of strikes. We play defense. We put the ball in play.
Yeah, I agree totally. I had you guys as the better team most of the season than the Brewers. They're just like so annoying to play against, and they
Yeah,
got out to that jump where they just needed the one more win to get over the hump
yeah.
there.
I mean, their home field advantage is real, and some of their arms, like their bullpen, can mix and match. So, like in a 5-game series, I thought just their ability with the off days to just run out some of those arms and give you different looks nonstop. And Mizorowski was throwing like 103 out of the pen.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean they. It's an interesting thing. I think they use it to their advantage when everyone says like, "Oh, they're not that good" or whatever. It's like I feel like they use that to their advantage because like they do have talented players. Like you
yeah.
don't just win 96 games or whatever it was.
Well,
So yeah,
It's a layup for Murph. I mean, the nobody believed in us piece believes in us piece
right.
is a very strong thing to inject into a clubhouse at all times.
Yeah, I'm always really careful when I talk about them because like I do think they're good and I think they've got just a difficult team to prepare for. Like they don't chase a ton, they don't swing and miss much. They play defense too. They've got a really good bullpen. It seems like every arm they bring up just pitches to the maximum of their ability. So and that can be culture, that can be a lot of things. And their home field advantage is real. Like playing there in the playoffs was definitely difficult. There's a reason they won all three at home against us, and we won our two at home against them.
Yeah, we played them previous year with the Mets. It's loud. It's different for sure. And to your point, their pitchers are electric. Like they have a whole
Yeah.
like stockpile of guys throwing upper 90s from every angle, and that's certainly legit. Any way you want to look at it. So you mentioned earlier a little bit about your walk rate and how it's been so strong over the years. Like, look at that. I mean, you're obviously in a red area the whole way. I'm wondering, growing up, was that a focus for you? What do you think contributes to that? Is it movement quality?
I
Is it
think
is it a mentality? What do you think contributes to that?
I think part of it was when I was a kid, if I overthrew my dad, I had to go run and grab the ball. Like if I didn't hit him in the chest, he would let it go by and be like, "You're gonna go run and grab that." And I hated doing that, and I hate running still to this day. So I was like, I better learn how to hit my dad in the chest. But yeah, as I've gotten older, I think some of it's like reps. I think my commands. I've always thrown strikes, but I think my command's just gotten better as I've gotten older. I think my delivery's gotten more consistent. My pitch mix has gotten more consistent. I'm not tinkering with things quite as often. And then, like you said too, like part of that's the confidence you get when you play with a great defense behind you. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any one thing. I definitely noticed after my second Tommy John though, when I like cleaned up my delivery a little bit and shortened everything up a little bit, I noticed my command definitely took a step.
Yeah, I think most guys. So I talk about this a lot on the stream when we watch guys hit or pitch. Like, there's an element as you progress in your career of becoming more efficient, eliminating wasted movement, and all those things help you play in the modern game. Whether it be have an ability to get your hand in the right spot at the right time to throw six different pitch types, or whether
Yep.
you're a hitter and obviously you can have a lot going on, but now you have a lot of pitches to cover. So the less you can have going on, the better. But I think there's also a mental component and like a focus component. Like, I'll show you really quick on my page here. This is my walk rates over my career, walks per nine. Like, at one point I was down to like 1.7, 2.3.
Yep.
I was living where you were living. And at that time period, it was all for me about where I was looking with my eyes and how long I could stay attached to the target. And then as time went on, that kind of went away, and then I would try to come back to it. But I always felt like a lot of it was just how present I could be on each pitch and not be thinking about ancillary things and just be so glued in on being convicted on what I was doing and like literally like being in my target beyond the pitch. And I'm wondering, what do you look at when you're pitching? Like, where do your eyes go?
I'm not this is really weird. I'm really not like a huge visual guy. It's all about feel. Like I know the feeling for a strike curveball. I know the feeling for a chase curveball. I know the feeling for, a heater at the top where I want to catch some of the zone or a heater above. Command is just so interesting. Like I could talk about it all day. I think part of it for me is at this stage of my career, like I've had some horrible games. I've gotten crushed. I'm not afraid of contact anymore. I'm not afraid of the worst case. Like I've had horrible games. It doesn't scare me anymore. I'm not out there pitching with fear. And I think part of that just comes with experience. Again, like if it's 1-0 and I'm facing a really good player, I'm not afraid to challenge them with, obviously situation depending. There's certain situations, open base,
Of course.
obviously. There's a hitter you game plan around, you don't want to challenge, like all those things. But when I was younger, I definitely just had some of those thoughts, like it's 1-0 here. I can't give up a home run. I can't do this. So yeah, I think it's a lot of things. And then also like as I've gotten older, my preparation and process has just gotten so much better. I didn't have one when I was younger. So now when I'm facing a guy, and I think this is a really big piece, it's like, okay, when I'm throwing my cutter, I know that this guy doesn't do anything with cutters. A lefty doesn't do anything with cutters backdoor. He hasn't hit an extra base hit on it in 3 months. And then when I'm throwing it, I'm like, okay, well, that gives me a lot more confidence to throw this over the plate. And that's kind of what I look for when I scout. It's like, all right, well, this guy hasn't driven a sweeper anywhere middle away, so I just have some room with it, or vice versa. And this guy crushes in zone spin. Jackson Trio crushes in zone spin. Well, I need to be really aggressive and step on it when I face him. So it's just understanding, like you said, being present, but it's like understanding before every pitch, like what my goal is, what I want to do with it.
Yeah, it's funny hearing you talk about your preparation and what you look for and stuff. Like, when I would look at hitters, for the most part, I wanted to do my usual stuff, like my plan A or plan B to righties or lefties. But what I used to look for was the when I'm in trouble, where do
Yep.
I go? Like, if I'm backed into a corner and I have to give him this pitch type, where should I shoot for this? Up, down, in, out. Give me some area, where the numbers are in my favor, so that now that my back is against the wall count wise here,
Yeah.
but I know the numbers are in my favor a little bit. Where if I get it in this general area, probably nothing too bad's going to happen. And I think when
Yep.
you're
Yep.
younger, you can get into a mistake of trying to be perfect with that all the time. But that's how I
Yep.
would generally look at it.
I could keep talking, but I think another part of it's just as I've gotten older too. Like I understand my pitch package to righties, my pitch package to lefties. Like it's no secret. If you're game planning for me and you're a righty, it's like it's going to be a lot of four seams away, cutters away, sweepers away, occasional sinker. And if you're a lefty and you're facing me, it's like the heater, outer rail, backdoor curveball, change up, backdoor cutter. And it's just understanding I don't have to. I don't throw sinkers to lefties really much anymore. I don't throw right on right changeups anymore. I don't throw my curveball to right. It's like really just simplifying that and understanding what I do well. And I think that's also helped.
Yeah, to that vein, what are some of the things that you're looking to work on this offseason? I mean, obviously your pitches usually are what they are at this point in your career. I mean, you're trying to tweak things a little bit, always try to optimize, but at the same point, like is this the time of year for you at this stage of your career where you're working more on physical traits, or are you trying to already think about the skill side of things?
Yeah, so I mean, I think one really easy thing for me right now is as I'm getting older, it's important to like remain athletic and stay strong. And I'm sure you know, like strength coaches, the older you get, and when you're on a contract, they don't really want to push you. And like our Cubs strength coaches going into this offseason, we're kind of the opposite. They're like, we need to be okay pushing some weight. We need to be okay keeping you athletic and running and moving and jumping. And so with that comes like, I'd love to gain some velocity back. I think right now that's my number one. Velocity is not everything, but it makes your life a lot easier. So I think that's kind of the low hanging fruit,
Yeah.
and we're on a pretty specific throwing program trying to do everything we can to achieve that. And then another one for me, and it was a good pitch for me last year out of nowhere, but was the kick change. But I just kind of like right before the season started, we were like, all right, that's the grip we're sticking with. Let's go with it. I'm excited to have a full off season of like actually optimizing it because I had good results with it, but like my metrics with it were all over the board. I throw one with 3 vert. I'd throw one with 10 vert. It was all over the board. I had no rhyme or reason. So that's another one.
Yeah, I was messing around with it too in spring training. After I got cut with the Red Sox, I was over at Cressy's and I was throwing down there and I was working on it. It's an interesting pitch because when you get it right, it's like an extra like -5 on your induced vertical
Yeah,
break off your changeup. So that's a big separator if you can
yeah.
do
And
it.
I've never had a even serviceable changeup really, and so just learning how to use it, learning when to throw it, who to throw it to. It was new for me. And it was exciting, but I'm excited to like really optimize that pitch.
Yeah, you can see on your pitch shape here, like if it got a little bit lower towards the zero line, now you're talking real crazy separation on your four seam. Now you can play the
Yeah.
bottom of the zone game where like a guy spits on your changeup
Yep.
down low pretty easily. You know
Stick the
you
fastball down
Yeah,
there.
you know you have
Yep.
low freeze and stuff like that. So that's always fun to be. Curious about the strength and conditioning part of it a little bit because I experienced this obviously as I actually trained it. My velocity was up and down throughout my career, and at times I was able to recover it, like have a really good off season, do a lot of explosive work, try to get a little more elastic. And I was able to shoot up actually between 35 and 36. I jumped another 1 or 2 miles an hour and kind of recovered some. But then at the end, I started getting into this space where it was like, yeah, I want to train that way, but it's also getting more and more sketchy. It's getting more and more dangerous.
Yep.
So it's really
Uh,
hard needle to thread. And then the
yep.
part two of that, which they don't really tell you about until you realize it maybe a little too late, is you kind of have no choice but to do it because when
Yep.
you get looked at and you get valued by the modeling, like any dip in velocity is going to really cost you. So it's
Yep.
like even if it's not costing you effectiveness in the game, it's still costing you in jobs and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, and I think it's like picking and choosing the right areas. For me, like I'm never gonna run the way I ran when I was 24, but like it's important for me to do some stuff and just stay agile. I'm never gonna deadlift 400 pounds ever again, but like being able just to touch some deadlifting once a week at 225 is still valuable. I've put a lot of deposits in when I was younger and worked out really hard, but I think it's important now to like pick and choose the areas where it's safe to push. And then our guys are really good about it, but there's things we're not comfortable with where it's like, all right, we're not gonna mess with that.
Yeah.
We'll find another way to get creative and push there. Yeah, like I'm a free agent after this year, and you see the way guys are getting paid now, and it's not like I'm gonna go out there and head whack and try to throw the ball all over, but like you look at the guys who get rewarded with contracts as they get older, and it's usually the guys that have good peripherals, swing and miss, good fastballs. Like it's just is what it is.
Yeah, I look at the Cody Ponce who just came back from Korea. A big part of his attraction to teams, like, because it's hard to look at some of the statistics and kind of suss that out. But like, he did gain 2 miles an hour. He picked up a new kick change, so it's like
Yep.
the shapes are actually factually different than they were before. It's a little easier to put your stock in that type of stuff that they tend to believe is a little bit more predictive. So I get it, but at the same time, I always think too, like sometimes pushing for that extra mile an hour or two, or being so committed to it all the time changes your ramp up. It changes how you go about things, and ultimately,
Yep.
you're providing the most value for your club if you're out there throwing 150 plus innings each
Yep.
and every year. So there's a little bit of a balance there, and each player has to figure out how to kind of player develop like kind of specifically to their
Yeah,
situation in a
no,
way.
for sure. And for me, it's like, we're doing like 2 high intent days a week, throwing wise. And it's not like I'm out there ripping pull downs every single day, but it's like, hey, today's a good day to maybe stretch it a little further, rip some pull downs on the way in, and throw your plyos off the mound and get radar readings. Like, it doesn't mean you completely abandon everything, but the message to myself at least is like, it's okay to try to like push a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
I think as we've played for a long time, I'm so comfortable just going out there and like I could play catch to 105 feet and throw 81 miles an hour in catch play every single day. But then I'm getting too good at kind of like staying in that middle lane. I need to be better at my heavy days. I need to be better at my recovery days.
Yeah, I went into a high low model. That was my whole thing. It's a little different as a starter, of course, but I lived my life like that, and that kept me healthy the last 7 8 seasons. And it was like if I'm playing catch, I'm playing catch. I'm training this
Yep.
arm. I'm going at it. I'm getting after it. I'm not going to do any half measures and create bad habits. And if I'm recovering, I'm recovering. I'm in the weight room. I'm moving around. I'm doing all my modalities. Like I'm
Yep.
attacking that.
I can still get better at that. I last year I wore the catapult, like the throwing intensity monitor basically, and like our pitching coaches told me on multiple occasions, like, dude, you're throwing too many medium intent days. Like, you got to have some higher, you got to have some lower. It's like on your bullpen day, it's okay to push a little bit, and on your day after your bullpen, it's okay to like just throw the football around and make 20 baseball throws. I still need to get better at that.
It's hard. It's hard. It's a major adjustment, and a lot of people struggle with it because it takes away practice days. Like you
Yep.
just have less practice days, and you have to have that inner belief that like I've been practicing enough. Like I'm good enough. I
Yep.
can go out there. I don't know. It's a fascinating thing that everybody attacks a little differently as they go on. All right. So really, the last stuff is just Cubs stuff. I always, as a player, I wanted to be a Cub in a lot of ways because it's an exciting place to play. You get the element of the day games. I'm curious what your experience has been like that, both with you and obviously with with your wife and everything now.
Yeah.
Having all the day games, do you feel like it takes a toll on you physically, or is it more of a benefit that you get a chance to enjoy Chicago a little bit more?
Sure, position players would roll their eyes at this answer, but like I freaking love the day games. Like I'm a morning person, I'm a coffee person. I love going to dinner after games. I love just even having the night off to like hang out and go for a walk, whatever. Position players, it might be a little different. It might be harder for them to ramp up every morning and get rocking. But I think as a whole, I think everyone on the team loves the day games, and I think like a Friday day game at Wrigley, it's such a cool feeling when you're playing there and you look up at the scoreboard in center and you're the only team playing and
Yeah,
people around the league are watching. And I mean, I think the Friday day game tradition is just so unique and so cool. And obviously Wrigley in general is just the freaking best. Like
yeah,
I've been there 3 years now, and when you make that walk from the locker room down to the dugout and you walk up those steps and the organ's playing and the place is buzzing and the bleachers are freaking popping, it really is special. Like it does not get old. We all talk about it all the time. Like when we walk out to watch the starters warm up, we're like, dude, this place is the freaking best.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really a special place to play.
It was special for me too. That's where I made my debut, like first playoff game, first save. Like a lot of stuff happened there over my career randomly, but I loved it. I love the old school nature of it as well. Although I know that things have changed a lot, and that's probably made the experience that much better. Now there's a cage. Like I remember back in the day, the hitters
Oh
used to
yeah,
have no cage. They have a little net and a tee. It must have been tough
yep.
to be a bench player back in the day for the Cubbies.
Yeah, I mean, my first year I debuted in 16, and Wrigley was one of my first road trips. It might have been on my first road trip, our second stop, and our strength coach was like, "Hey, just know like we're going to Wrigley. If you want to get, you normally lift on this day. What if we push it up a couple days and do your lift here while we're at the Mets Stadium because the weight room setup's better? That way, when we get to Wrigley, you can just kind of do some movement stuff on the field. Like we really adjusted our routine at Wrigley back in the day.
Yeah, we did too.
Um, and then I remember just like I warmed up for a Sunday night baseball start on the field. Like the bullpens were on the field. That was like maybe my third start in the big leagues, and that adrenaline was next level. Warming up in front of everybody.
Were they chirp? Were
Uh,
that were the fans chirping you right there?
Not too bad. Like maybe a little bit, but not too bad. Yeah, I mean, like we're so spoiled on the home side now. They really have done a number on our home side. We have everything you could ever need. It's so freaking nice. Yeah, it's changed. Like I think another underrated thing too is just driving to the field. You're driving through a neighborhood. It's not like you're driving through a city or a highway or you're in a parking lot. Like I rolled through on a Saturday morning with my windows down, just going through the neighborhood, and everyone's out walking their dog. I don't know. It's just such a cool vibe.
It is. It's unbelievable. I think of Ben Zobrist riding his bike. I remember he had full uniform, rode his bike there one time just because he felt
Yep.
like that's the vibe he needed to have.
Yeah, you're just rolling up for like a summer ball game. It's cool.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, really. What was I gonna say? I had something else for you here. Can you talk a little bit about some of the guys specifically? I mean, PCA had the MVP caliber first half. He's going to be on that Team USA, which is going to be exciting to watch him. To me, when I'm watching him from a distance, just looks like he swings a little bit too much. Probably, it's like that aggression. You don't want to take it away, but you have to find a way to get him more in the zone. It's like one adjustment away from like MVP quality. I don't know.
Yeah,
What was it like seeing him every day?
yeah. Just on that, and like, it's such a tricky thing with Pete because like he can hit when he's going, he can hit pitches that no one else can hit. Like he'll hit curveballs that you shouldn't even be swinging
Yeah,
at.
against Michaelis, right? Like way
Yeah,
low. Yeah.
I've seen him hit some pitches at his eyes. So it's not like there's one thing where you're like, just don't swing at that because it's like, yeah, I'm with you. It's he's such an exciting player to watch. Um, he's no matter what, even when he's not hitting, his defense and base running are so next level good that he can impact the game in a lot of ways. And then I thought when he was really going offensively, it made our lineup so ridiculously deep, like just so deep. Yeah, he's electric. He's a guy like you go to the field like as a starting pitcher when I'm just sitting there in the dugout. He's a guy that's like genuinely just fun to watch. Like I watch him warm up in between innings because his arm is so good. I love watching him interact with the fans out there in the bleachers. So yeah, he's fun. You're starting to see a lot of PCA jerseys pop up around Chicago.
All right, and then the other guy I was curious about was Nico a little bit. He kind of flies under the radar, but the sense I get from across the field is that he's like a hard nosed type of player, like really prepared type of guy, really hardworking type of guy. To like obviously he does it on both sides of the ball, but just seems to like fly under the radar, not really like in your face type of guy. Like the personality of PCA is so obvious, so he draws a lot of eyeballs. But I feel like Nico is a really great player in his own right. So I'm curious what your impressions were after playing with him for the last few years.
Dude, Nico's a dog. Awesome baseball player, awesome human, super smart, super hard nosed. We went to Japan this year and we opened against the Dodgers.
Ooh.
And I just weirdly thought the whole time he had flexor surgery and he didn't make that trip with us. The whole time we were there, I was like, something just doesn't feel right. Something feels off. Like our team isn't. It's this just isn't it yet. And then when we got back and Nico broke camp with us and guys on the team were like, holy crap, Nico really does complete. I was saying it as we were there. I'm like, just wait till we get Nico back. Nico really brings this whole thing together and makes it work. And then I think it's so fun when guys are on like 1 year deals or in their first year and midway through the year, they're like, I had no freaking idea how good Nico was.
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
doesn't strike out. He puts the ball in play. He runs the bases. He's elite at defense. He's elite in the locker room. His prep is incredible. Like he just checks every box.
Does he
And just
remind you at all of LeMahieu at all? Because like that was the experience with me with DJ. Like when we first came up together, he's the type of guy where like if you it took a month, but after a month, I was like, oh my god, he's so good. Like it just took
yeah,
a little
really
while.
similar. Yeah. And Nico will never talk about himself. Very similar to DJ. Like he doesn't want attention. He doesn't do it for anything other than love of the game. Like he's just out there playing ball.
That's great. I think he's in a great spot. I was looking at their free agent list for next year. Like him and Jazz might be the
Yeah.
main two guys out there. So I'm excited for that. That's going to be really great. Uh,
Nico's one of those position players that'll text you too. And I know on the pitcher side, like I love this. Nico will text me after a start and be like, dude, that backdoor cutter to this guy was so freaking good. Like, how'd you feel about this pitch tonight? I loved it. And he's also not afraid to be like, oh, yeah, I noticed you didn't quite feel right with this pitch, but you leaned on this and found a way to make it work. Like, he's really paying attention. And it's not just him. Hap's the same way. Dansby's the same way. Like, they're
yeah,
all paying attention.
yeah, you do. Those three in particular, you're right. That's a little trio of baseball minds on top of baseball ability as well.
Yeah. I love when position players aren't afraid to talk pitching. I'll come back to the dugout after an inning and PCA will be like, dude, where was that pitch to this guy? Like, I thought you got hosed on that because you got that call earlier. Like these guys are like really paying attention and trying to impact the game in a lot of ways.
And it lands so well with pitchers because we want to know what hitters are thinking.
Yep.
We want to know their perspective. I mean, I saw it firsthand this year when I was in spring with the Red Sox, and I'm around Bregman every day, And I mean, he's pop quizzing guys. He's asking me about thought process on backdoor sinkers, like what I'm looking for the
Yep.
moment I think it's open. I mean, he's locked in on all the strategies. Talking about how at times in his career he's called pitches from third. It feels to me like those guys are worth like a little bit more than even their own roster spot because they're literally raising the tide a little bit in the floor of everybody around them. So it's pretty cool that Nico's in that category as well as Dansby and Ian Happ. That's really
Yeah.
good for you guys.
Yeah, and I've never been on a team where the pitchers hang out with the position players and vice versa as much as the Cubs. Like when we're on a flight, it's just everyone interacting with everyone, which is really cool. And sometimes teams can be a little clicky, pitchers hang together, outfielders, infielders, whatever. But yeah, it's a really fun crew.
All right, good. Well, I'm just to watch you guys this year. I'm curious what other moves get made and how it all kind of comes together. But that's all I got, JMO. Thanks a lot, man. This is great. Appreciate you.
Yeah, you gonna be breaking any winter meetings news on here?
No, no, no. I'm not a reporter. I'm not even going down there. People are asking me. I'm like, what for what? I'm not going
You
down
know
there.
the day I signed with the Cubs, we threw at Columbia that day, you and me, and I got a text while we were there that was like, "Hey, stay by your phone because I think it's about to start happening. The teams want answers on you today." So that was the day I signed. I threw with you in the morning, then I went and did PT, then I took the subway down to Equinox to work out in West Village, and I had a bunch of missed calls. So yeah, that was fun. Can't believe it's been 3 years.
Yeah, that's a good memory. I remember that day vividly too. I was trying to stay with the Mets, I believe, at the time, and I think the Mets had interest in you as well. And
Yep,
I don't know, it just gets to that point in the offseason where you're like, are we close? Are we not? Because you know how it goes. It's like talk, but then it all happens in like a 2 hour period.
yep, yep. It happened really fast for me, but cool, dude. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
All right, you're the best. Good luck.
All right,
Great luck this
later, Otto.
offseason. Yep. See you later, JMO.
Thanks.
All right, bye. All right, that's JMO. He's the best, as you kind of all obviously see. Great human, great teammate, great pitcher. So we are back here. Oh, don't want to do that. Anyway, we are good. I think we're good, right? All right. Yeah, I thought that was good. So we'll get back into the chat a little bit more. There's a trade to break down and one other thing, and then we'll wrap it up in the next 20 minutes or so. But good stuff from JMO. That was awesome. He was fun. And it's good to get a little insight. I think the Cubs are the team that is kind of the sleeping giant in that NL Central. I mean, the Cardinals too, once they get their act together. But the Brewers keep winning it, doing it their style. You would think that the teams that can flex their financial muscle would be able to push these guys aside at some point, and the Cubs are certainly one of those people. So let me quickly get over here because I've seen in the chat there was a couple of things that happened here. So let me quickly go to trade rumors to get an idea of what just happened. Carl Edwards Jr., Carl's Jr., minor league deal with the Mets, still kicking around, former Cub. Padres listening to offers. I think the Padres are really trying to lose money, trying to shed salary. And then the Diamondbacks signed Mike Soroka. Okay, so it's a guaranteed 7.5. First, we'll look at Soroka signing. He's an interesting player. And then we'll go look at that trade that happened the other day, and then we'll go from there. My quick thoughts on Carl Edwards is he's a little bit of a project. If you get him right, though, he's got natural cut to his fastball, good breaking ball. He had velocity for a long time. But it's been a while since he's been a consistent performer. He did play pretty well in 22, 2.76, 57 games, 62 innings for the Nats. I actually thought that was his rebirth. I thought he was coming back in. But then that next year was kind of weird. Washington was fine for 32 games, and then he's disappeared again since then. So he's back, and maybe he can impact that Mets bullpen. Definitely the Mets. Let me get rid of that. Definitely the Mets tend to obviously really care about their depth a lot. And this is another good depth piece. I've always liked him physically. His physical talent has always been pretty impressive. I wonder if we can find him, if there's anything in here. Carl Edwards Jr. And you can see what I was talking about with the shape of his pitch. This red up here is that cutter, four seam with the cut on it. So it's a special fastball. That's why I liked it to begin with. And then he's got a pretty droppy curveball as well. So I don't know. I've always liked him stuff-wise. It's a little bit unique, and he's not old, 34. So he's getting old-ish, but he still definitely has some physical ability. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out for the Mets. All right, now for Soroka, who's now a Diamondback. So this shows you a little bit how Diamondbacks, we were wondering where they were going to go. I was saying that I wasn't sure if I was them, if I would actually go into it, like trying to win. I think they're kind of doomed, but that's not really their MO. They do try to go for things. All right, so here's Soroka. 4.52 ERA last year in 22 games, 17 starts, 89 and 2/3, 95 strikeouts, 1.13 WHIP. I know he pitched better after the trade, right? And Maya wants me to quickly explain this movement chart, so I'll do this. Right now, pretend you're the bullseye is the catcher's mitt in the middle, and you're looking downrange. So this is from the pitcher's perspective. So if you're a righty, anything moving to your right is going to show up on the right half of this pizza pie, and anything that moves left is going to show up on the left side. Now, if you're a lefty, it would be flipped, right? So just imagine anything that goes to the right is on the right side. Anything goes to the left is on the left side. Anything that's above the flat line, above the zero line, means it has positive vertical break. So it has some level of spin that's keeping it above where gravity would take it, and anything below means that it has spin that's contributing to more break below where gravity would take it. So you're going to see your fastballs in that upper part, and you're going to see your curveballs in the lower part, and you're going to see a lot of pitches kind of in the middle, but either going to the right or to the left. Anyway, here's Mike Soroka. The expected numbers are pretty good. He was a big time. What's crazy is he was like a big time ground ball sinker changeup guy when he was young with the Braves, and now it's his four seam is now his primary fastball. 45% four seam, 35% slurve, which is a little bit of an tweener pitch now, sweeper with more depth, and then a changeup and a sinker probably to keep righties honest. What you like about him is the age. I know, and also his stuff ticked up a little bit last year in terms of last couple years in terms of velocity. He's now averaging 93.6, which is pretty good. I'm trying to look at these other metrics here. He's always been a low extension guy, but above average ground ball guy. It comes down to his contact here. He's going to get some whiffs. He's got a decent amount of strikeouts, but how does he learn to control his contact? He's now in a little bit of a game where he could probably benefit from a little bit more weak pop-up to help his expected batting average is still pretty good. Honestly, the barrels aren't bad. It's just a little bit too much whiff, which too much walk, not quite as dominant with walks because the chase isn't as high. And I think that's probably a function of that these pitches aren't really tunnelers. They're more anti-tunnelers, meaning they have big movements in opposite directions. They don't exactly, a lot of times when you generate chase, it's because the guy thinks he's swinging at one pitch, but he's swinging at another pitch. So that's a little bit of a difference there in terms of that. All right, let me go to their roster resource, see where he slots in, because they definitely needed some starting pitching. I mentioned that if they wanted to compete this year, they could think about rerunning, Merrill Kelly or somebody like that. But here they are at the moment. Ryan Nelson, Erod, who they need to get much more out of, Fott, who's been kind of up and down, and now you put Soroka in that mix. So they did add another one. I think they're going to have to get another starter here. I don't hate the price. He's had a lot of injury issues. He was one of the OG, like Achilles injury guys. But I don't know. It'd be fascinating to watch how this move plays out. Obviously, it's a little bit of a half measure. You want to compete, but it's a 1-year deal. So clearly, you were looking for somebody in a specific price range, and Soroka fit that specific price range. I think that's kind of the whole shebang with this one. All right, let's get into the trade that happened the other day. This was pretty much a 1-for-1 trade for Rare, who's coming from the Nationals over to the Mariners, and then Harry Ford. I know there's another piece involved. Harry Ford coming back to the Nats. At first glance, I really liked this trade for both sides. The Nationals aren't probably going to be a playoff team this next year. So what's the point of having this Ferrer guy in your bullpen when you can go ahead and maybe get a guy with 6 years of control who's actual top 100 prospect and Harry Ford? I also think there's a Keibert Ruiz element to this, that maybe they don't buy into Keibert anymore and they need to go ahead and build up some more catching. So I kind of liked it from that perspective, but I love the Mariners getting their hands on Ferrer. When I looked at their team earlier, I mentioned that it would be great if they could inject another lefty into their late inning mix, and this is the guy. So when you look at him, you're wondering, how come he's not that great yet? When I'm looking and seeing some really high numbers in the red here. Fastball velocity, he's averaging 97.7 as a lefty, 4.9% walk rate, which is outstanding, 4.8% barrel rate, meaning he's never getting hit. They never hit him out of the ballpark. And the ground ball rate is 99th percentile, top of the scale, 64%. This is sort of like a Framber Valdez with no breaking ball, or really it's a Zach Britton approach back in the day, but probably with a slightly less good sinker, but it's still a hell of a sinker. If I were player developing him, I would be working on anything on the other side of this chart, some sort of slider, a better version of a slider that he can tunnel off that sinker. Anything with glove side movement for him, which would be to the right side of this chart if you're looking at it, so that he can have something going both directions. I'd also be curious about a four seam. I don't want to mess up his sinker, but I do think it would be interesting if he had a four seam that he could pair kind of off of his changeup, because his changeup's getting into the negative vert here quite a bit. And if he had any type of representative four seam, and the angle's kind of low, 32, it's right around maybe a little bit below league average. Four seam up might play for him, and I think it would be interesting because every player is so geared on fastball. But if you have two different shapes, I think that would help him with his weak contact. I also think it would help him get more whiff. I think a four seam, he could maybe get some more whiff above the zone. It would also help him create more separation from his changeup. So that's what I would be thinking. Curious what the Mariners end up doing. And let's see how he fits into their bullpen real quick. I think really nicely, actually. You have these two absolutely dominant righties in Munoz and Brash. And then Ferrer coming right after that. I love that with Bizardo. Like, that's a really good stuff-wise. That's an exceptional top four. I'm a little worried about Bizardo because he threw way too much postseason, but I don't know, maybe he'll keep rolling. And then they had this other lefty Inspire, who's also a good piece, and then they'll churn the rest of it. That Vargas guy's got good stuff. But I like the move. Clearly, Mariners are invigorated by their success last year, and they're going right back in the market and trying to get even better. And I love it. They already have the great starting pitching. They might even have Cade Anderson coming at this point to join that group. But I like that they strengthened their bullpen. Obviously, they got Naylor back. This is like becoming more and more of a complete team. I think they still have some more moves to make. They have a couple more bullets they can fire, including like if Colt Emerson can maybe be the guy at third base, he could be coming. But I like their team a lot. I'm probably picking them in the NL West when we get to that point. So we'll see. Daniel Brown talking about the Nats here. Nats aren't good with figuring out pitching. Finnegan got a lot better Tigers. Now, it's important to know this is a whole entire new Nats regime now. Paul Taboni, Blake Butera. I'm sure there's tons of other signings. I did see that they stole somebody else that's a pretty good pitching person. Director of pitching came from the Mets, Grayson. So like they're going to have a whole new world of pitching development here. So don't be surprised if the Nationals start, pushing some gains out here in their player development pretty quickly relative to where they were at. I think Rizzo was more of a scout, and I don't think his infrastructure quite player developed the way that he would have liked, especially not recently. So I don't know. I kind of like it for both sides, and I like them getting Harry Ford. Let me go look at him. Is he on this list? By position, catcher. Yeah, he's the number 3 catcher in baseball as a prospect. But I don't think this guy's like a slam dunk everyday guy. Here are the scouting grades. Hit 50, power 55, run 60, arm 50, field 50. I do think no matter what, you have to focus on the defensive part of the equation. That's the ultimate way to make your team a little bit better, is just have a guy who affects all your pitchers in a positive way. That would be a good piece to be. And like I mentioned, Keibert Ruiz is definitely kind of fallen off. So now Harry Ford might get a little shot here. And it's a guy that they're kind of taking a lottery ticket. All they gave up was a reliever, and especially a reliever that they weren't in a winning moment, so it doesn't really have any value to you for a guy that could have value, could have 6 years of value. So I like the move for the Nationals as well. He's been one of the younger players at every level. He's been in AAA for a bit. 22-year-old. This year he played the whole year in AAA. 283, 408 on base is really good. 460 slug, 868. I mean, those are solid AAA numbers. Tacoma, considering it's the PCL, you might say everybody rakes, but Tacoma's more fair than those other places, so I give him pretty good credit. And you got to love the walk to strikeout ratio, 74 walks, 88 Ks. So I think this guy might just be a really good baseball player who unfortunately doesn't have maybe the body to become a super duper star, 5'10", 200, right around an average size for a catcher. But I don't know. I liked it for both sides. Let me go look at the Nationals roster resource just to take a peek at what they're looking at the catching position. So they have Keibert penciled in as the starter right now and Riley Adams as the backup, but we know Harry Ford will make his presence known on this team pretty quickly. Keibert has been the interesting guy to look at. Big piece coming over in one of the trades that they made. Catcher of the future. Unfortunately, it hasn't really gone very well. You look at the last few years, the average continues to kind of be uninspiring, especially the on base. 260 on base in 24 and a 277 last year. He's now in the 600s and then in the 500s of OPS last year. And then you get to the defensive part, which is just the part that you can't live with. -6 blocks above average, -9 in framing, also really bad in just pop time, doesn't throw guys out. Let me see if that, and it was the same story the year before. In 24, all he tried to do basically was put the ball in play, but his damage was all gone. And I thought he had a shot to be a pretty good guy when he was younger. But the defense has been really bad for a few years, so I think they have to get out from this guy and head to Harry Ford and see how that works out. So that's going to be interesting to see. Ford was less blocked than Dalton rushing. He should be gone in the coming weeks. Yeah, I mean, I think if you have a blocked prospect with real value, like it makes sense to make the move. Especially if it works for both sides. You just don't see a lot of trades now that are kind of really good for both teams. But I like this. It's a baseball trade, It's a solid old school baseball trade. Yeah, and Kiebert's had a long run. He's been up since 2020. So I don't know. I think this makes a lot of sense, and I like it. I like it for both teams, as I've already mentioned. All right. Boom, 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 boom. Let's see here. All right, there was some stuff in the chat that I should probably look at. Somebody asked me about the Sonny Gray Cashman stuff. I didn't see what happened. I saw that, Sonny's been pretty, I guess Cashman maybe said today that Sonny had told him that he hated New York or something. I just remember this, and I'll tell this one story because it was so funny and it was so interesting, and I had no idea what the hell was going on. But I'll tell it real quick. So I get signed by the Yankees, 2019. Sonny had been traded that offseason. In fact, while I was negotiating with the Yankees, Sonny's trade value was kind of a roadblock a little bit in my own chances of getting on the Yankees. And this is why it's not the only reason, but this is one of those things where I do think the trade market really, really, really hinders the free agent market because there's always another option. It's like, well, it's not like, do I want to sign this player or this player? And there are different price tags. It's like, I can sign this player or I can trade for this player. So that was what the case was with me. They knew they were taking Sonny off the team. He was making, I don't remember what it was at the time, but it was similar to the amount of money that I was probably going to sign for. So it was like, if he trades, then we can go ahead and sign you. Or we can trade him for a relief pitcher and then we don't need you. So that was a little bit in the ether there, which was interesting. Ended up happening. He gets traded or whatever, and then I get signed. But anyway, I show up to spring training, and the second day of spring training, we had a meeting. Cash comes in. Cash starts going on a whole rant about how people need to communicate with him. He's more than willing to relocate you if you don't want to be here. He's more than willing to make sure that everybody that wants to be here is here, and that it's the right environment. And ultimately, not everybody can play in New York. It's not for everyone. And how he was frustrated with a situation where there was a player that they weren't sure how much he wanted to be there or didn't want to be there, ended up not getting traded the year before, then had to wait till the offseason to trade him, and how it was a little bit of a mess. And he's like, look, if you don't want to be here, I will move you because we want everybody here that wants to be here. And I'm pretty sure he was talking about Sonny Gray at the moment. And I think that was just a little bit of frustration about that they weren't crystal clear what Sonny wanted before that trade deadline. But I think he made it pretty clear after the fact that he didn't want to be there anymore, and that's why he eventually did get moved on. And I don't think there was any animosity there at the time. I just think it was a lack of communication. And I think ultimately Cash wanted to make it crystal clear to everybody in the room that chemistry did matter to him, wanting to be there did matter to him, comfortability did matter to him, but that has to be communicated or there's no way anybody's going to know. So I thought that was fascinating, and it's getting a lot of legs here because I saw Sonny did the Red Sox thing, basically saying, it's great to hate the Yankees, which all this stuff is great for baseball. Now Chapman's kind of said some stuff like that as well. So, man, Yankees, Red Sox getting a little more spicy, and that's how it should be. It's exciting, and it's fun stuff. Did my side hand tat hurt? No, not really. My tattoos are all small. They don't really hurt. Now, this one a little bit because it gets on a bone, and I feel like whenever you're near the bone, the vibration of the tattoo needle sort of gets you a little bit. But, like, right here on this fatty part of skin, like, not really anything. And I don't know if I would have done it again, but it was different. Okay, Mariners defense with a sinker baller like Ferrer. That's a good question. Mariners defensively. Mariners defensively. How were they last year? Leaderboards, fielding. Is there any way to look at team? Well, outs above average. Team Mariners. All right, so here's the Mariners defense from last year. Julio was incredible in the outfield, and then the infield was bad, bad, bad. Now, Naylor's an upgrade at first base. Not that that's a huge deal because he's playing first base. But yeah, I mean, J.P. Crawford being negative 13 in this spot, not great. Polanco's also not there. So they have a lot of work in the infield in general. Like I mentioned, they're going to have to make some moves. And you'd like to have a better infield defense with this type of sinker baller. But I also still feel pretty good about I feel pretty good about it overall because I actually think they can make this guy better with a couple tweaks as well. And I don't think it's all ground balls all the time. But yeah, you'd like to have this defense a little better. But I think the Mariners have a chance to do that. Not with JP. I mean, I'm sure that he's working hard on his defense this offseason, but they have a chance to improve at third. There's no more Suarez. They have a chance to improve over Polanco. So those are two spots they can improve. And Naylor was an upgrade over whoever they had at first before him. So I don't know. Should be okay. Ooh, Cashman said Gray told him he was told by his agent to say he wanted to be in New York by the deadline, even though he didn't want to be there. Okay, so there's some more information. It's just a misunderstanding, and I think ultimately nobody wants that. Like if I'm running a team, I want to make sure that I don't have somebody on my team that absolutely doesn't want to be there, and they could potentially poison the well with my other guys. Ooh, the agent said it was bullshit though. So I don't know. A lot of confusion, but now there's some bad blood here, and so we're gonna have to watch how this plays out. It honestly just makes it more entertaining. Now that I'm not involved in it, it has nothing to do with me. I think that's great. Here's a totally separate question. What happens with Pete if Okamoto signs soon? More leverage? I don't know if Pete has any leverage. I mean, it just seems like he's looking for more years than teams are willing to go. I think he's going to be a good player. I mentioned in the next 3 or 4 years, he's going to hit a crap load of homers, and you know that. You can take it to the bank. But I know that people look at more than just that. And it's also, you need to have suitors. You need to have multiple suitors to drive up your price. Sometimes that's hard to do. So I don't know. I don't know how Okamoto affects him at all. I know Okamoto can play a little third. He can play first. He's considered a different type of player than Pete, but I don't know. I'm very fascinated to see how this all plays out. I wish that teams would just line up for Pete, but I don't think a lot of that's going to happen. Do the Red Sox have more than 5% of leverage on Bregman? I don't think they have a ton of leverage on Bregman. I think the leverage is that they could go a different direction. Their leverage is ultimately if they decide that Bregman's not have to have. If they decide they can replace not him, but that money with like a Pete or an Okamoto or a combination of other players or Schwarber, whoever, and they feel like that levels up their team, then they have leverage because they don't have to sign him. Therefore, that takes a situation where you feel like where the player feels like I have one team that's desperate to sign me out of the equation. Now, I'd be probably pretty desperate to sign him even over those other guys because I see the overall impact. But at the same time, I don't know what the price tag is going to be and the other stuff. So I don't know. Red Sox, they have a lot of different ways they can go here. And honestly, a lot of times it's the job of the main executive to not be too influenced by something that intimately. Like Bregman really well now, but I don't know if that adds $5 million a year or what. Like, are you still evaluating him the same way? I think it'll be tough. All right, last question or two, and then I'm hopping off for today. We'll be back on Wednesday. Do I think any big deals get done? I'm sure a couple things will happen. I think it would be so exciting, though, if the trade deadline was like December 10th, right? Like Wednesday. If we had a trade deadline for the offseason, there'd be so much action right now. It'd be so dizzying. It'd be awesome. But stuff will happen just because people are around each other. So stuff will happen. More, people are talking more. Things will definitely happen. So we'll see. I'm excited to hopefully break it down. This is another one. Why does Schwarber seem to be valued more than Pete? I would think Pete, having been consistent for years, having the ability to play first base, should make him higher valued. So I think lefties are generally valued a little higher. I also think Schwarber was a much higher performer. Let's compare them really quick. If you really just look at it, in terms of recency, I mean, they both had great years this past year, but Schwarber's was different. Schwarber's was even higher. So there's Kyle. And then let me throw Pete up here. But I agree they should be a little closer than probably what a lot of people are saying. I mean, look, Pete's obviously 96% ex-WOBA. I think it comes down to a lot of the stuff on the bottom and not knowing what to believe in it. The whiff, the K, the chase, the squared up, and the walk. Now, if you look at Schwarber, he's got worse whiff and K, but it's the chase and the walk, right? The chase is 90th percentile and then walks 97th, and Pete is at 52% chase and walks at 53, which are all improvements. Like he's doing better in those ways, but he's not top of the scale either. I think maybe it's just a little bit of the lefty thing. It's interesting though, because Pete's also younger, 31. Schwarber's 1 year older. I don't know. I think Kyle also has a little bit of that allure. Like he's been maybe in more playoff runs, deeper playoff runs, been in a couple World Series. I don't know. I just think something about the lefty portion of this changes things a little bit. Also, the perception that Pete demands to play first base. And I don't know if that's still true anymore. But the fact that he can play first base, this is a good point here by P. He can play first, but there's no positive value. So if anything, it's kind of dragging you down. So I think that might also play into it a little bit, is that there's one guy that's saying, I am a DH, and there's the other guy who's saying I'm a first baseman. So I think a little bit is tough. But I don't know. I'm a big fan of both of them. Obviously, I've played with both of them. I think they're both great. But I also think, I don't know, Schwarber was like as elite clubhouse guys I've ever come around. And not that Pete's not good, but Schwarber's like, man, 100th percentile with that. So I don't know. That's a little bit intoxicating as well. I see the stuff talking about Freddie Freeman in the Canadian hospital. That's great. That commercial was awesome, doing a great job with that stuff. So we'll point that out real quick. All right, what else we got here? The industry might also think that Schwarber is more likely to sign elsewhere, whereas Pete is more likely to return the Mets if the contracts are close. I don't know. Like, seems like Schwarber has more suitors. I've seen the Pirates, the Phillies, the Reds, then obviously the Mets, and a couple other teams floated out there where I haven't really seen much else floated with Pete except for the Red Sox. I think Schwarber's also on the Red Sox radar. So I don't know. Maybe there's just more teams in on the lefty bat. He fits more lineups with the lefty bat. These are all good questions. I do think there's a total world in which Pete goes to the Sox. I could agree with this, but I mean, he might also go to the Mets. I just think it's going to get dragged out a while. I don't think we'll get a resolution on Pete for a bit. I'd be happy if we do, but my suspicion is that we probably won't. How serious are the Pirates' 5-year offers? They're probably serious. Otherwise, why do them? But I just don't think he's signing with the Pirates. I'd be stunned if he does. That would be a big deal if he did. So we'll see. All right, last question. Last thing to look at. Would I trade Tong for Joe Ryan? And then we'll go from there. So I've talked a little bit about Tong. I don't think he's quite ready yet. I think he has exceptional potential. I'm very fascinated to watch him pitch this year. I think with a couple small improvements, he could be a dominant guy. The fastball special, the delivery special, the curveball special. The minor league results were special. The kid is special. The enthusiasm, all that is good. I think it's like, I don't want to jump to conclusions off of this first couple games, and really it was just like one hellish game at the first inning that skewed everything. But at the same time, I would be tempted for Joe Ryan. I like Ryan a lot. I don't know what type of control he has left. But Joe Ryan's a horse. You look at the last 3 years, they've been pretty consistent. He's thrown a lot of innings all the years. He's punched out a ton of batters. He's got a 1.06 career whip. He makes your team better right now. He would be the ace of the Mets, him and McClain, right away. So I can see some temptation to it. Obviously, you'd be missing out on 6 years of control, but there's 2 years left of Joe. I'd be tempted to do it. I don't know what else it would take, if it would be more than a Tong, but I'd be tempted at least. I don't know. I'm higher on Tong than Sproat for ceiling, so I'd rather throw Sproat in there if it were me. But I could see an argument for either in this direction. And Joe Ryan would definitely raise the ability of the 2026 Mets, which maybe has a little bit more value coming off the disaster from last year. So I don't know if that trade's actually legitimately real or not, but I would stare at it for a long time, and I might pull the trigger. Because as good as Tong is, and as special as he could be, still has a lot of road to go, and it's hard to maybe predict how that will come out, whereas Joe Ryan's good right now. So that's my thoughts on that. All right, what else we got here before I say goodbye? I hate Mets only looking for short-term deals that would take us out of Amaya and Suarez. I just think that's the reality with Stearns a little bit. I just don't see Stearns going out of his comfort zone for a starting pitcher. If he does, congrats, but I don't see it. Amai's the guy I've wanted for the Mets the whole time, but he doesn't want to play with other Japanese guys, so that means getting rid of Senga. And Michael King's the other one I really wanted. And I think you could get huge upside with him, although he's probably going to have some opt-outs in his contract. Because I think Michael King could be a top 10 pitcher in baseball. So those are the two that I'd be hunting. Framber is a little bit of a different conversation. I think he's going to get a longer deal, and I don't know that there's any type of fit there with the Mets. But Michael King and Imai would be two guys I would chase. All right, what else we got? It will take more than Tong for Ryan. That's my expectation too. And the question is, what else? What else is in the deal? 100%. This is like heartbreakingly frustrating. Now he still ended up making $30 million last year, so it's hard to feel bad. But yes, free agency is not fun for everyone. Just so you know, like they're going to grind you down. They're going to make you wonder what you've done wrong. Red Sox fans act like Ryan is Pedro Martinez. I think he's pretty good. Obviously, no Pedro Martinez, but I think he's pretty good. He's an exciting pitcher. I watched him shove against the Yankees last year in person. The game I went with the gold card. He's got that uphill ability. Really smart guy. I like him a lot, and I've heard good things. This is one more. What do I think of Vientos and Alvi for Stephen Kwan and then sign Real Muto? They make you better right now. Stephen Kwan will make any team better right now. And then obviously I love Real Muto as well, but I just don't think that's going to happen. I think the Mets are happy with their catching at the moment. And I don't want to give up on Alvi either. Sproat's probably more major league ready right now. I agree he'll contribute more, but I think for me with Sproat, I'm looking more at like versus Tong. I think Tong's ceiling is higher. I think his pitch package and what he could do physically is going to be greater than a Sproat, but I think Sproat, yeah, he's more ready right now. So that's why I wouldn't want to give him. I care a lot about this season right now for the Mets, especially if I'm running the team. You're basically on the hot seat. If you don't play well right now, you're all getting fired. Mendoza will get fired if they come out the gate slow. And then, eventually Stearns will be in trouble if they don't start winning. Like they're in a different situation. Now, if they had a good season last year, you keep rolling it or whatever. If you're in charge, maybe you think about it a little differently. But I think this season has more value for the Mets than the average season. Like they have to bounce back. So I don't know. Maybe that's created by the noise, but I feel it. What else? No way the Japanese thing is a hard line with Amai. Yeah, probably not. But I mean, it seems crazy, the whole Senga thing. Oh, we're definitely trading you. Oh, I don't want to be traded. I'm just so curious. He has such upside. There's also issues there. The Senga thing is going to be fascinating. All right, what else we got here? At some point, Stearns has to realize he needs to overpay for elite starters. I think maybe he's looking for the right target. I'm in the same boat as you here, P. I believe in that. I believe in going after the big fish, especially when you can. But maybe he hasn't found the target he likes, and I mean, this has been his MO since back in the day, but I do think, things can evolve. You can evolve your thinking. Yeah, well, there was an actual quote. There was a quote. He did start saying that he would love to play with those guys, but he also said he'd love to take those guys down. So, anyway. Oh, yeah, Mauricio walk-off yesterday. Should we watch that? Is that that's in Dominican League? All right, let's do that real quick. I have to sign in, so you can't watch this part. Hold on. I saw that my guy, Mauricio El Chimi, who is a Winter League legend. I mean, he was MVP of Lead On with Licey a few years ago. I love that he just seems to be a different player down there, whether it's the home cooking or what. I don't know, but he's been crushing. Here we go. Licey. Ronnie Mauricio. Here it is. Here's the walk-off home run, folks. Ooh, big boy on the mound here, too. Oh, sayonara at the Quisqueya, too. That's a poke. That's deep out there, boys. Oh, helmet off. And don't forget, he did tear his ACL in the Winter League. So clearly not thinking about that now. But you see the emotion. I mean, this is not even in the round robin yet. We're not even deep in. And you see how juiced everybody is in this ballpark. This is a cool ballpark, by the way. Very cool. Look at Ronnie. He's a beast. He's so big. He's sort of like the O'Neill Cruz's, Ellie De La Cruz's without the speed. Like, he's got the big body, the big power package. Let's watch the home run one more time. Why not? This is the other prospect that the Mets have that I know he's been inconsistent, and at the big league level he's gotten exposed a little bit, but the upside is big with the ability to hit the ball hard and impact it. So it's always been fascinating watching Ronnie a little bit. All right, what else we got here? This catcher thing with Framber, yeah, I mean, it was bad. I still have him as the #1 free agent, though. His overall package body of work is the best in this class. But you have to get to the bottom of some of that. I heard something on Foul Territory where they were talking about how his agent was literally sending out like a video about his character and stuff to teams. So clearly they're trying to get ahead of that. No, I don't think this mattered at all. I honestly, I don't think there's as much of that as people think, like that, oh, this guy signed for this, that means this guy gets this. It's all very individual based on, and also like who is interested in you, how many teams, and whether you can get into a bidding war or not. Yeah, Tong was untouchable in the minors, but the minors are the minors, right? So we'll see how he transitions to the big leagues. For me, the biggest thing watching Tong is he doesn't have command within the strike zone. He can throw enough strikes, but he's just trying to throw the ball over the plate with 3 pitches. And I think in the big leagues, as good as your stuff is, you want to evolve another level beyond that, be at least able to hit up, down when you want to, or in, out when you want to a little bit. I also think he could use some more pitches as well. But it's a great place to start what he's got, like great backspin on that 4-seam, great extension, etc. Stearns was willing to give Yamamoto $300 million, so that's true. I know that they had a whole meeting at Steve Cohen's house and the whole thing, and I know they were big on him. But I mean, Yamamoto, you have to be an idiot not to want that guy. He was 25. Every team wanted him, so I think that's a little bit of a different calculus for Stearns age-wise. All right, let's see here. Yeah, right. That's funny. There's a little bit of a break right at the holidays, and then after that, it picks up big. It goes into the round robin, and then the playoffs, and then after that, the team kind of consolidates into a Dominican team that goes into the Caribbean Series into January. So it goes on for a while. Goes in for a while. I mean, look, everybody right now is so infatuated with prospects, and like I am too. It's going to be very, very interesting to watch Tong's season this year. You can't have a better, more exciting year than he had last year. So sometimes guys stay on that trajectory, sometimes they don't. So I'm very curious to watch Tong this year, and then we'll know whether he was worthy of giving up or not. But I don't think the Mets are going to do this. I think this might be true, but I'm not sure. Guarantee Yamamoto got an opt-out and everything, but we'll see. He did something, right? He did like Spurs or Chips or something. I don't know. We're going to find out a lot about Minaya this year too. I think he was clearly compromised last year. That's my personal opinion. But I don't know for a fact, so no point in commenting on it. Okay, last question before I leave. Here it is. Adam, did you ever go to Driveline to work on stuff? So I went to Driveline for 1 week between 2017 and 2018, so between my worst year and my best year. I didn't go there to work on stuff, though. I think this is a key point that I want to make. I went there to learn how to use my Edgertronic camera that I had bought and also do 1 or 2 pitch design sessions with the trainer who was working with me, which interestingly was this guy named Matt Daniels, who was a Driveline trainer at the time. He then went on to work for, I believe, the Giants and then the Twins, and he just texted me last night to let me know that he just got hired as the Colorado Rockies director of pitching, which is exciting. Somebody that I know, that I trust, that I think is a good baseball mind is now in that role, which is a great role for DePodesta and those guys. Like, this guy's going to come in. He's going to make some changes with the Rockies, which is great. But he was basically like the guy for me to bounce ideas off of at the time. He wasn't like super high level. I think I was the first pro he ever worked with. So it's cool to see his rise. But what we worked on was a little bit of a mentality on a cutter grip and also how to work the camera and what I was looking for. And then I went back home to my old lab and I worked on everything myself. So I was really there. Like I read hacking the kinetic chain, and I watched a lot of driveline content. I followed Bauer really well on the internet, and I talked to Kyle Body, and I went there for a little bit and threw a lot. That's where I saw Tim Lincecum and Bauer and a few others. But ultimately, I wouldn't say I was a driveline guy. I didn't really take any. I didn't really have any benefit, I would say, necessarily like level up from going there, except that I learned a few things. And that was my style more. I never wanted to be indoctrinated in one culture or the other. Like I wasn't a tread guy. I wasn't necessarily a Cressy guy. I wasn't necessarily a driveline guy. I wasn't a 108 performance guy. But I know all of those people, right? I would take a bit from every of them. I've known Eric Cressy since I was 18 years old. So I've always taken things from him. He wrote me workouts for years. I would use his facility when I needed to, but I wasn't like all in doing everything the whole time. Same when I went to driveline, I'd go out there and take bits and pieces and bring it back. I always wanted to be in charge of my own stuff. But anyway, to answer your question, yeah, I was there for a week in Kent, Washington in 2017, and I had a great time and I learned some stuff, but it wasn't like I trained there for a whole year or anything like that, which I think some guys do and they get great results. And one thing I've always respected about driveline is they're always kind of evolving their process and getting better at new things. One of the things they have now, which is amazing, that I wish I had when I was there, and I haven't seen anybody else with this. So I used to throw to a target a lot. You heard Jameson Taillon talking about how he used to throw to a target a lot. I had a target, let's say it was a cell phone, like the pad was like a cell phone and it had like the colors, like there was a red, green, yellow, blue, and it also had numbers all around the side, called a pitching pad. And I would throw at that for command training. But now what Driveline has is they have a screen that projects the strike zone. And when you're throwing bullpens to this screen, you can put the glove and the target exactly where you want, and then it will tell you the distance of your miss. And like, I mean, it's just amazing for command training because it's a lot more representative of what you get in the game. And a real target, you're trying to stay on that target, you're executing pitches. And I think it's funny because everybody thinks all driveline guys are just they just picture guys throwing balls as hard as they can, doing pull downs and ripping their arms. And like, I don't know, they just picture them doing a lot of physical stuff. But this was a command training stuff. And their technology with that and their setup with that is truly, truly ingenious. So I would have loved to train with something like that. I wish more people had access to stuff like that. But Driveline's ahead of the game when it comes to stuff like that. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. And I am done for the day. I will see you guys on Wednesday. We could go over regular Hall of Fame. We could get back on the prospect train. Penciled in right now is Garrett Cole for Wednesday. So that should be maybe a longer talk, maybe something more interesting. But it's penciled in. I have to confirm with him. If not, we'll find another day. But Wednesday will be the day. So I'll see you guys then. And thanks for hanging with me. This was a nice long stream. Thanks to JMO for coming on. And I will see you guys later. Peace out. All right. Have a great day. See you guys. Bye-bye.